remember how I told you I'm watching all the superhero movies ever made? Like even the shit ones.
Yeah. Even the 90s Captain America one, right?
Even the that was so unbelievably bad. Like I cannot, just go and look that up on YouTube. Anyway, that relates to my story. So my friend and I have been planning to watch the unreleased Fantastic Four movie forever. Like we've been talking about this for years, okay? Because it's like, it's this movie that they made just to hold on to the rights. And it's terrible, of course, but also there's some parts of it that you're like, yeah,
wait, did it get leaked or something?
No, it's for whatever reason it ended up on YouTube years ago, right? So they made this back in 1994. Somehow it got on YouTube, and it's been on YouTube ever since.
Okay.
Until
no,
the very night that my friend and I were watching it.
They took it down.
We were in the third act of this fucking film, and all of a sudden we get a notification saying that this thing had been taken down. So we're like, what the fuck? That can't be right. That's impossible. This has been on YouTube. That specific upload had been up for 6 years. Okay. So we're like, must be some sort of a mistake. Whatever. Let's just go to one of the other uploads because, there's like quite a few of them on YouTube, but as I said, it's been on YouTube for years. We start watching another one. Boom. Down as well. And then we go back and we see that every single one of them has been taken down at that exact moment that my friend were ticking that off our bucket list. We could no longer watch the
Was it the day the trailer for the new one came out or like around
it was it was like 3 days after. No. So that's our theory.
It was like, we gotta take that down, don't we?
It was like Constantine Film or something that struck it. I don't know what that was.
That's a film production company. Yeah. I don't know if they're big in the UK.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe they're the people that made this, and now they're like, we want our check because everyone's like, we want to release this now. Or some shit. Give it an official
a Marvel
release.
Takedown. They're like, people are going to get confused. Take those down.
Yeah, it's so true.
They're going to take down. They're going to take down Van Forstick, the Josh Trank one. Also,
okay. But the thing is, what is so creepy about this movie, right, is that it's so funny. So the start of it is like a flashback sequence with like a young Reed Richards. And he walks into this house and there's these two kids there, like teenagers or whatever. And he's a grown-ass man. He's like, I don't know, probably like at the end of his college years or some shit. And there's this like young teenage girl that's there that's clearly like 12 years old.
Oh, is that supposed to be
And
Sue?
she's like...
Oh, no.
And she's like fawning over him. Like he walks upstairs at the end of it and she's like, oh, he's so dreamy. And then it like... 10 years later, it doesn't really say. And then he walks into the same house, and then she's like standing at the top of the stairs, and she's like, "Hi, Reed," and he's like, "Whoa, hey!" Like it was so creepy, man. It was fucking creepy. It was just like, whoa. So groomer Reed Richards is part of. Maybe that's why Marvel wanted to take him down, man. Yeah, maybe that's why.
Trying to undo that.
Wait, did you? So you didn't finish it? Was it on archive?
We couldn't. We can't watch it now.
Is it on archive.org? Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Can you use way back for that stuff?
My thought was actually to go and check archive, and we might do that later on. But we were just so flabbergasted by that. We actually just went and watched Mission Impossible 1 after that. Like,
oh, hell yeah.
That's a good. What a film.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cinema.
What a film.
Yeah, honestly. We just on a different level to the other ones. Like,
oh my God. I was just, all the years later, we're watching these action sequences and they just hold up.
That's Brian De Palma, right?
Yes, it is Brian De Palma.
Yeah, it's like it's like such a paranoid movie. Everybody's like sweaty and like
totally anxious. And the CIA agent dude is like kind of very like Lynchian, like the way he's shot.
Oh yeah, everything is like the Dutch angles are like whoa.
Yes, exactly. I love it. It was such a great movie. So anyway, that was our time. So
spooky.
Yeah.
Welcome to the movie podcast.
Thanks for getting that taken down, dude.
Yeah,
that's right. That was all me. That's all me. I hope I don't get like some check in the mail. I'm like watching it illegally or some shit. Now they're going to be on to me.
It was your IP that busted it specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Ralph.
Exactly.
Way to go.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the movie podcast. Now we're going to switch over to Friends Per Second, the video game podcast.
Hey.
We're on episode 63. Is that number correct?
Yeah.
Lucy? Is that really?
I think so.
Right. We're getting close to the big one.
We're getting close to the
64?
big one.
Close to the
But not
big
yet.
one.
We won't say it. Nope.
That's right.
I am Jake Baldino. I'm hosting this week, or I'm trying to. I am joined as always by Lucy James and Ralph Skillup. Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Also, Alanah Pearce. Hello.
Hi.
Alanah, how are you? Nice to see you.
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Alanah's going to be hanging with us. You right? You did a bunch of min-max stuff last month.
I basically like guested on a bunch of their podcasts, and then I was like, these guys aren't cool enough. I got a hit at skill up. It was great.
That's a lie.
Man.
You know it.
Take that, Ben. Get
sorry,
wrecked. Get absolutely shreked.
No, they are wonderful. It was very fun to make a bunch of stuff with them because I was saying this to you guys earlier. I guess they like their community's so rich that they're not like they just make some really goofy content. Like it's just like bringing the fun back into video games. Like a lot of it was just really, really fun, silly stuff. Like Janet and I played like a few hours of Doom 9093, which is probably my favorite game. They could have asked us to play a new release. The community was like, absolutely not. Doom 93, and this rules. Yeah. It's nice. Very, very fun.
I like the idea of doing like a residency like that almost, or it's like you're like the guest of the week for SNL. Like that's cool.
That's kind of what they're doing there. Yeah, Min-Max is doing that like I guess monthly guest. So I was the guest there for January, and I think they're trying to mostly have people who work in game dev, which I think is a really good idea.
I want to do that for a YouTube channel. I have no like reason to be on. Like I should like go on like Corridor Crew or something and do like VFX artist react, and I'll be like, I don't know how this works. You guys are cool. Big fan.
It's like that clip from Avatar: Way of Water where they're like tying the rope with the thing, and all the animators just completely blew their loads over it on Twitter for like 3 years.
Such a flex. I did my Lord of the Rings rewatch, and when Gollum is catching the fish in the stream, it's like they're just showing off there. That was like such a flex.
I just watched The Two Towers last night.
I was gonna say I saw on your Instagram.
It's better than I remembered.
It's my favorite one.
Well, I can't. In my head, it was always Fellowship, but I always liked the first installment, and it's Rahul's favorite as well. And I was like, damn, this movie's really good, and I would still say one of the best wars. I don't know, fights.
Best fight sequences of all time.
It's so good.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Damn, what a film.
It's funny how our podcast just keeps coming back to Lord of the Rings every single week.
I didn't even do it. I didn't do it.
I just watched the appendices, like the whole appendices, like all like 14 hours of it recently.
Hell yeah. I think the presence of Lucy just like the content just gravitates. Yeah, it brings it out of all of us.
But it's funny how we never mention Rings of Power. No one brings it up.
I didn't finish season 2. I thought the start of season 2 was all right.
I didn't watch it. I was just so checked out. I bought War of the Rohirrim on 4K. I haven't watched it yet because it hasn't arrived yet.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
I hear it's kind of mid. It's like, if anyone doesn't know what War of Rohirrim is, it's kind of like
anime.
It's like an animated thing, but like some of the people involved, like Fran, what's her name again? Philippa. Sorry, Philippa was involved. Yeah,
and Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson, I think, like produced from afar.
Exactly.
Their name is on the trailer.
But like, I just don't, this whole like the hunt for Gollum thing that they're putting out, like
oh my
they're
God.
working on a new movie right now. I'm not up for that. I'm just
every time I saw a news article where it was Viggo Mortensen being like, oh yeah, of course if they ask me back I'd come back, and I go, no. You are in your 60s now?
I saw a tweet that was like, Viggo Mortensen will be the same age as Ian McKellen was when he was Gandalf in the original movie.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So that does not work.
I don't like that.
And
no, I don't like that at all.
I don't know.
Anyway.
We don't have to get into my feelings about what they do with the works of J.R.
We should do. That's a bonus episode.
Shout out
where
to
we just
Ben
hash
McCreary, though.
That's the Patreon only content right there.
Exactly.
That's right. We don't have a Patreon, by the way.
This is the second week in a row you've made that joke, and I'm like, we don't have a Patreon.
I don't remember making that joke last time, but sure, it sounds like a joke I made.
Either. We're just like just saying it. It sounds natural. We listen to enough content, right? It's like, that's what you say. So State of Play just went down. We're coming like hot, fresh off of that. Sony had it. It was February 12th, if you're listening to this later. And it was a State of Play definitely centered around a lot of third-party stuff. A couple of first-party things in there. But
Days Gone Remastered, though.
Yeah, I guess we'll just pick some things out. Yeah, Days Gone Remastered is interesting, actually. But I found myself... So there's new stuff, like Horde mode, which is really cool for that gameplay. I think that works. But I was like, oh man, I want to play that with a friend. Oh, if only there was a sequel where you could do something like that. But alas.
I mean, this is such a big thing. Like, realistically, okay, proper straw poll here. Who thinks, hands up, they should make a Days Gone sequel? Say it with your whole chest, Jake.
I was going to say, for audio listeners, Jake very gingerly raised his hand.
I kind of did like
like in slow motion.
Yeah, I'd say somewhat. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather the Order 1887, but like then I'd say Days Gone. Don't.
I hope you're not being sarcastic. I'm like fully on board.
No, I'm 1,000% on board.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
No people who say that ever are joking. They're always serious.
That's true.
Those people are always serious.
Yeah.
I feel like Days Gone, even the remaster announcement, has a small but very dedicated fan base.
Right.
Like I thought that game was okay.
Absolutely.
It wasn't really my thing.
I
but
like
I feel
that
like
game.
the people who, I liked it enough. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like I'm not like
exactly.
more, but like it was, I had a good time. But I feel like the people who love it like scream about it so much that I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it's quite underrated. I think that it is a better game than it got credit for. I think it's certainly a better game than it was reviewed at, because I think it had a lot of technical issues at launch as well, which really held it back. So totally fair that it gets dock points for that. But I think when you smooth those out and allow people to experience this, I think it's gonna surprise some people and be like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad I picked this up, And so I am always disappointed when there's a remaster that's doesn't feel entirely necessary. And I don't think this is entirely necessary.
No.
Like, you can go back and play this and it will be fine and you'll have a good time and it'll look fine and whatever else, right?
PC port is good.
Far
too.
better. Say again, sorry?
PC port is good as well.
Yeah. Far better to go back and do other things that exhume other things, right, than do this, okay? At the same time, I'm also like, you know what? It's going to be cool to see the discourse around this get going again, because people will see that this was actually a good video game that I think got, a bit sort of overlooked.
What do you like about it so much? What's your favorite thing about it?
I think, first of all, the horde tech stuff that it was doing was extremely impressive. And when you actually are running around those just a billion zombies all around you and you're herding them, it's a very satisfying feeling to run them through like 50 traps that you've laid and then actually thin that herd down to the point where you can start shooting them one after another. I really like, you're also on a motorcycle, and your motorcycle can result in some really cool sort of like emergent storytelling moments when you're out in the middle of nowhere and all of a sudden your bike's out of fuel and you're like, fuck, and you're trapped and there's nowhere and there's like zombies all around you and you're like, what the fuck do I do now? So like that kind of unexpected stuff doesn't happen in a lot of Sony games in particular, because they're all very like on rails, linear experiences or open world experiences that aren't constrained by survival elements. So that made it really cool. And also, I personally had a soft spot for a lot of the story. Not all of it. I think some of it was a bit ham-fisted and whatever, but some of it actually I think hit right. Overall, I did enjoy that story. So yeah,
Deacon St. John was kind of cool because he was an interesting character, and I like Sam Witwer and how he portrays characters.
Absolutely.
But he's also like low key like an insane person out there. Like he's constantly muttering to himself and like cursing and shit, and it's just like very refreshing. Every shootout, you just hear him going like, "I'm gonna fucking kill all of you."
Which you would, you would.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. Like that game, like I said, didn't land for me. I don't really remember why though, so maybe it is a good time to jump back on. Like it just didn't grab me. I do feel like I had this weird Pacific Northwest fatigue at the time. So many games are set there. It was like in that time
what else?
well.
Like what else?
Well, I mean, The Last of Us, obviously.
Sure.
But Deadly Premonition, which I had also like recently replayed at that point in time. I feel like Life is Strange was also kind of around there.
Yeah,
like there were just
Arcadia
a whole
Bay.
bunch of there were just a whole bunch of games set in that region that I was like, give me less goddamn pine trees, but that's like such a pretty good
I'm
way.
all about it. I love the pine trees. I love it. I'm into it.
It is a beautiful place.
Yeah. So I think it's, as I said, I think it sucks to see resources marshaled towards remasters that feel unnecessary.
Yeah.
But I do think it is cool that this is going to get in front of some people, and people will be pleasantly surprised by this, I think.
What about Bloodborne though? When will we have justice for Bloodborne?
Ripperino. And even
I
like
really
Sony
don't
even
know, dude.
DMCA
I really
struck
don't
Lance's
Never.
patch, the 60
Yeah,
FPS
yeah.
patch. And so we're like, let's go, baby. Dose me up with hopium. Let's go. But then all of a sudden, obviously...
There is something we don't know. There's some, the Bloodborne thing doesn't make any sense. I feel like there's some legal thing that we're just not aware of. Like I was saying this on a stream today, that like one of the only things that like I was told off for when I was working for Sony was I just like replied to a joke Bloodborne tweet, and they were like, you can't do that, you have to take that down. I wasn't given any context or anything.
Joke about Bloodborne.
Yeah.
That's so
And I was
funny.
like, what is
amazing.
it though? Like I don't, is it like...
No, but I think because Shu was actually interviewed by Kind of Funny, and he offered a theory. It wasn't a fact, but his theory was that Miyazaki really cares about it. So he wants it to happen,
He wants to do it
but
though.
he wants to be able to make sure it's done correctly, and he doesn't have any bandwidth right now because he's working on a billion things. And
I
like
guess Blue
that,
Point is
of
working
all
on
of the
other stuff right now,
explanation
too.
actually makes the most sense to me. And I'm like, all right, I see how that is a thing, you know?
It's like if
So-
ever I became president, you know how like the first thing you would do is
Here
you
we
would
go.
ask what's in Area 51. If I ever
Absolutely.
worked at PlayStation, I'd be like, yo, what's the deal with Bloodborne?
What's the secret? What's going on here, really?
You know they have a Bloodborne elevator in the San Mateo office.
No, how is it? What is it? Just like adorned with blood?
No. So the whole elevator on the inside is just
icky elevator, like a little gross elevator?
decaled floor to ceiling with bloodborne
Okay.
stuff, and I think it has one of the. Does it have the cleric beast or something in it? I forget. I have pictures of it somewhere.
Okay.
It's cool.
I will say if Shu doesn't know the actual answer,
Well, I mean, he
then
probably does, but he's maybe he's just
Cagey.
like feeding. You know what
he
I mean?
might not. I don't know.
Maybe.
And maybe just nobody knows. It's such a no-brainer. It's so funny. There's something.
Well, the other big hitters for this state of play, switching gears, Borderlands 4. What'd you guys think of the gameplay for that?
Wait, hang on, Jake.
What?
How was Metal Gear? I don't give a shit about the rest of this.
Okay,
Metal Gear for
trying to,
you.
like,
I want to
go
know
through
how.
some-
I want to know how you feel about Metal Gear.
So that trailer it hit state of play, but that trailer's actually been out for a couple of days because of like a leak. I actually think it's like a little bit of a stilted trailer. Like it feels very advertisey, but I also think it's just an incredibly well constructed trailer because it distills like the actual plot and like what you're doing in Metal Gear Solid 3 down to a couple of dialogue lines, and it explains it through that. And it's really good. And then also like that theme is incredible. Like that theme is so fucking good that like you just put that in a trailer.
Top 5, top
That's
3, top 3, baby.
Yeah.
Like name a better video game theme song.
Metal Gear Solid 2 by Harry Gregson Williams.
I actually disagree with that. I actually think that is an amazing theme as well. Don't get me wrong. I listened to that on repeat when I downloaded the trailer from like a video, like a website, so that I could then burnt it onto a CD, so I could keep playing it over and over again.
Yeah.
That is how much I love that trailer.
Same.
Not even joking. But even then, I would say the Snake Eater theme tops it.
So the trailer was good, and I think the look of all the bosses and everything, like I think they all look good. Ocelot still looks a little weird, but it's interesting because it very much to me looks like a glossy, shiny version of the game. Like they've been very upfront about like keeping the game intact. Like it's still going to play very similarly with some convenient updates and stuff. But I don't know. Like I'm at the point where I'm still like, well, I like the way the original looks, and I like the color palette and the tone and stuff of the original. But
it's that, yeah,
I don't know.
It's that kind of challenge where like you know, Demon Souls I think face something similar. Well, they did take a different direction. Like Bluepoint took a different visual direction than the original. But there is, you know, when you make a leap in generations and you really polish something up, yeah, you inherently change the art style. Like it's almost impossible to stay one-to-one because part of the art style was the low polygon counts and low density textures, you know? So yeah, it's a tough needle for them to thread.
I'm curious to see what else is in it because they teased at the end of the trailer the Ape Escape thing. But then they also said, and there's more. And I'm like, what's more? What could it be? Is it new stuff? There's rumors that like David Hayter has recorded a little bit of new stuff or something. I don't know. So we'll see. I just hope it, you know, all preserves Hideo Kojima and his team's vision. And because there's a lot of shit in that game. I actually like started replaying it recently because out of all of them, I have replayed 3 the least amount of times. And 3 starts off with so much dialogue and exposition that I'm hoping that they're like brave enough to leave it all in. They better.
Do they not all? Like I feel like 4 does too, right?
4's a whole other level.
Yeah, 4's like,
and that's a lot. That's at the back end
insane.
as well. 4's like an hour and a half trailer, an hour and a half cutscene at the end of the
But the start of the game is like the only gameplay you get for ages in 4 is like you like crouch under a car or something.
Yeah, you walk
and then
forward.
it's cutscene again.
Yeah.
It's like nothing.
Right.
But I haven't replayed any
Kojima,
of them,
man.
so
I love him so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks rad. Like I know that people don't trust Konami for a variety of reasons, but I feel like you can trust someone with a remake. I mean,
I don't think
they've said a lot of good
I think
things.
that Silent Hill 2 was incredible. I mean, that's just the remaster was was remarkable, and obviously that's Bloober Team's work. But Konami also oversaw that. I think the difference as well. I think one of the they had the original Silent Hill 2 team involved in that. I wonder how many. They did have some Metal Gear 3 talent involved in this, though,
Yes,
right?
they do.
Yes, they did. So that's good. I mean, I think that actually matters quite a bit. Obviously, it's a shame it wasn't Kojima. That is a real bummer. But everyone's moved on from that. As in, like, Kojima's moved on, Konami's moved on. So I don't know. Silent Hill 2 gives me a lot of hope that this will be similarly good.
The way I think about it now too is like I'm gonna be annoying about things like the Master Collection. I had some issues with that and like how those games were collected, but I'm kind of more like leaning. Maybe I'm getting older, but like I'm leaning more into like the fact that more people are going to be playing it, experiencing it for the first time, and talking about it. That's fun. Even though the discourse may become insufferable, because it ultimately often does on the internet. I don't know. I just think it's nice that people are going to play it and experience the thing that I've been talking about and making my entire identity for far too long.
Hell yeah.
Speaking of Konami, they're publishing this game called Darwin's Paradox.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
This
is awesome. So this is a 2D like side-scrolling kind of platforming adventure in the vein of something like Inside or Limbo or Little Devil Inside, where it's like very cinematic and production value stuff, but it's not spooky. It's like you're like a lovable octopus just kind of making his way through a crazy world, and I think that's cool.
This looks nice, actually. This looks like Limbo, but with octopus.
But you're not, and you can change to sort of blend into your surroundings, like squeeze through.
Yeah,
just like
the
Solid
blending
Snake.
thing looked really cool. Like that's awesome.
This looks actually
Stealth
great.
game, yeah. Looks
Yeah,
cute.
I think this looks fantastic.
Looks like it has a
this.
sense of
Konami's
humor.
doing this?
Yeah, Konami's made some interesting little publishing choices here and there that people don't realize. They published a shmup like last year.
I saw that,
That was kind of cool. So yeah, I don't know. I'm hopeful for this. I think it's interesting.
This looks very cool. I hadn't seen this trailer, so this looks quite sick, actually. Yeah.
Lucy, I know you're keen on Hell Is Us.
I thought you were going to do a goof and say, I know you're keen on Borderlands.
I mean,
I am just really intrigued by Hell Is Us, and I was in the GameSpot news Slack, and obviously the voiceover is Elias Tufexis, and everyone is going, Deus Ex is back! Deus Ex! I was like, no. But this is actually from some of the people who did work on Deus Ex. The creative director is Jean-Jacques Belletet, who was the art director, I believe, on the Deus Ex Human Revolution, Mankind Divided. Inspired by Souls. Looks bleak as all hell. I'm really intrigued to see more of it. And yeah, I don't know. The world is too happy right now, so I really need to have some depressing media to really just kind of keep the balance. But I'm really intrigued by it, and also good to see it in a Sony presentation.
I actually didn't realize from the trailer that it was inspired by Souls. Like, are they calling it a Souls-like?
I think it's more just like, I chatted to John, and he's a big fan of that kind of stuff. And so I think maybe that's where it's not, like a Dark
There's
Souls.
gameplay out there, and the gameplay is very much that type of thing.
Bleak.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it doesn't want to tell you anything.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And when I say Souls-like, I mean kind of in that regard. It's not, it doesn't look like high fantasy or anything. But you never know, it could be taking touch points from certain things.
Oh, yeah, I guess there's like a few seconds of gameplay towards the end of the trailer that, it looks like fast Souls kind of action. Yeah, I thought this game looked really cool. I didn't really know anything about it, but looks rad. I really like the art style for sure.
I'm glad that this trailer kind of showed because they showed it when they first revealed it. It was gameplay first. They showed gameplay. So I'm glad here they kind of filled in the blanks, because that first reveal felt like it didn't have any. It's like, what are you, a guy in a hood? Cool. So now they kind of like fleshed it out a little bit, and it's definitely something. I hope this is cool. It's definitely going to be hard, and I'm going to bounce off of it and get my ass kicked. But I think that the Souls type formula is really cool when it's applied to sci-fi. Like, I love the Surge games.
Surge.
Or really mostly more the Surge 1 than the Surge 2. But still, I think there's still room for stuff like that to get.
Surge 2 is pretty good.
Yeah.
Surge 2 is pretty good.
I like the first one more, but...
Really? Why? Why did you say that?
Because I played more of it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I think it was simpler. It was very like focused.
Yes,
the
second one got a lot bigger, and
it did
kind of but good shit.
My hot take is that I'm really sick of every game studio / publisher marketing bigger as though it's better. Like, I don't always go, yes, bigger, thank God. They're like, the biggest map we've ever made. And I'm like, what if it wasn't? What if it was
just
smaller?
said that. It
drives me crazy.
I was on the Press X to Continue podcast the other day, and they have a thing that they say, what's your hot take? Like, what's your bad opinion? And I was like, I don't care for bigger games anymore.
Don't need bigger.
I don't need it. Don't need it. You give me shit, I'm not going to do it.
You can't have the two girls on this podcast saying this and both of you.
I was going to say.
You
I was
can't.
just looking at Ralph making a face.
I was like, that's our social clip right there. No, I mean, I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I also think that people are becoming more aware of that. Like, it feels like Ubisoft are almost scared to talk about like Assassin's Creed being big. You know what I mean? They're kind of pulling back on some of that language. And yeah, I see it less of I see that as a talking point less these days, I would say. I don't know.
It's coming hot off the heels of the Doom Eternal marketing. They were like, bigger and the biggest maps. I'm like, that's not what I want from Doom.
I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with that with Doom. I actually feel like quite a few beats within that reveal or that were not to my taste. And
Me
that was
too.
definitely one of them.
Yeah.
100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, just don't need bigger.
Get
out of here first.
Yeah, so Borderlands. It looks like a Borderlands game, all right.
It looks cool. Like the gameplay snippets were cool. It was like flashy little supercuts, but it's
Can
still
you tell
not
me
doing
if one thing that means that could not have been Borderlands 3.
They look, the hands look a little different. The guns look a little different.
Do they though? I don't know that they do. Look,
it's got to be hard to do with
the color
such a
palette's
art
different
style, though,
But
right?
that's the thing, right?
How would you?
I remember seeing this week actually, like the Australian sales charts, and I saw that like Borderlands 3 was like the number 3 selling game in Australia last week or something. Okay, so I'm assuming that was like on sale or whatever. But my point is this: these games just sell like hotcakes.
Borderlands is beyond us. Yeah.
And they continue to sell. They have this whole community, this whole thing that keeps going. It's almost like a it's not a live service, but it's sort of like live service adjacent, right? So
Totally.
I think Gearbox know, they're like, we have this formula that works and people like it and we're not going to mess with it too much and we're just going to make another one. That's my vibe for this. Because as I look at it, I really, if you told me that was like a DLC drop for Borderlands 3, I'd be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like the rest of Borderlands 3, but sure. But to see that that's like a whole full-blown sequel, I'm like, what is new in that package? Do you know what I mean? So
a little more verticality, it looked like, but that's really all I could pull.
Then maybe it's more like density. Like the environments look pretty dense. Like I really don't know, but I'm also
really
not
just like
Borderlands guy.
splunching here,
Like
you know?
really grasping.
Maybe
The
like
hands
more
are different.
trees.
Maybe the environments are more
I'm
different.
so
You can
sure
jump.
there are
You can
Borderlands
jump
fans
higher
who are
now.
going to be really mad at us
Yeah.
for this because, like,
No.
I'm not enough of a Borderlands person
No.
to say, you know. But to me, I'm like, they're still making them.
Well, because what's the whole thing from 3 was we're going to have billions of guns, right? What's going to be the thing for 4?
No more dick jokes.
No more guns.
Different
Okay.
writers.
Yeah, they've
we've got
literally
new
yeah.
writers. Yeah.
But I am curious because the trailer, the first reveal trailer and everything, like kind of implied this like new universe or like this new time period or something. So I'm excited to see like how that translates over to like the feel of the game.
It does look like traversal is maybe a thing that they've focused on here, like in a Doom. I don't know why I keep talking about Doom. In a Doom 2016 to Doom Eternal kind of way. It looks like there's definitely a double jump here, which I don't believe was in 3. It looks like maybe they've focused on.
There's a grapple I saw as well.
Aerial traversal is like the big thing, which
maybe.
is a difficult thing to do in DLC if it's something that you have to like rework your physics to cater to. So
of course.
if that's the big change, that can massively change gameplay feel. Obviously, 2016 and Eternal feels super different as games because of the platforming. So maybe that will have a way bigger impact than gameplay can sell. Because the cell shaded thing about Borderlands is it's just so identifiable, which is to its marketing credit, obviously. But you just go, it's Borderlands. I get it. Like it's a tough one. So maybe that'll be the hook.
There's one I definitely want to talk about really bad. It's Mind's Eye. This is Build a Rocket Boy. This is from Leslie Benzies, the Rockstar North guy. Yeah. They've been working on this thing for a while. And this is a third-person cinematic action adventure sci-fi game where you're driving around
break kind of thing
in car chases, but then also getting into like third-person shootouts. Did this trailer remind you of like an early PS3
GTA?
trailer? where you
100%.
see like a guy with suspiciously good animation take cover behind a car, like 7 Days to Vegas, like one of those types of things.
Yes, absolutely.
Totally
Totally agree.
It looks cool, but I have questions.
Absolutely. I don't know how this actually plays. It kind of looked, when it did play, it kind of looked a bit simple and janky, but I actually don't care that much because I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in this idea of like a studio with a little bit of money behind them making what is clearly like an action movie video game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's
the thing. So Build a Rocket Boy, Leslie Benzie's new company, they're making Everywhere and they're making this.
That's what's
And
not totally
IO
clear to me.
Interactive is publishing this?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
But
Everywhere. I'm on the mailing list for Everywhere, by the way. Everywhere seems to be one of those like, I don't know. I've looked in detail, but it seems to be one of those things where it's Fortnite adjacent, like
it's more
user generated content,
Robloxy.
Robloxy user generated
Platform.
content theme.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like that just seems like the biggest Hail Mary play to me because you're going up against like literally Epic and Roblox and Minecraft in a
the
way.
thing is,
But they also have a thing called Arcadia. What's
I don't know what that is. I
Arcadia?
don't know anything about that.
I think that might be
That's
like
too
the
many video
world
games.
they're building. That's like kind of they have like they're doing like transmedia
metaversy?
stuff with it too, like
Okay,
a podcast or something. I gotta point something
Wait,
out
no,
though, because
was that them or was that I thought that was Dan House's thing. He was doing all the transmedia stuff.
that's another. They're also doing there's
Oh
That's
my
Absurd
God.
Ventures. Yeah, of course.
so with Everywhere was teased for a while as like it looked like it was half Fortnite type stuff and half like classic real AAA video game. The snippets that they showed of that AAA video game had the guy who played Lincoln Clay from Mafia 3. And he's in this game Mind's Eye that they showed today, but he looks a little bit different. So I'm trying to figure out like what the projects are. I'm almost like, is Mind's Eye essentially, now I'm getting in the weeds, I apologize, but is Mind's Eye like the Squadron 42 to Everywhere's Star Citizen?
I wonder. That's an interesting idea. I would doubt it because I would say Mind's Eye looks super adult, and everything that I've seen about Everywhere looks really like ages 7 to 14. So I doubt that, but it's possible. You never know. I tell you what, Leslie, if you're watching, man, come on board the podcast. You tell us, okay? Just or if anyone on his team is watching, just flick this through to him.
I was going to say, I'll send an email, press@buildarocketboy.com.
Yeah, just see what comes back. But look, I think that Mind's Eye looks cool. I'm just down for sort of like Max Payne 3-esque, angry dude in a cinematic shootout kind
Drifting.
of theme
Bit
of
of
the video
Black
game.
Mirror.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Did you see that episode
I
of
never
Black
watched Black
Mirror
Mirror.
where it's like the army warfare one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's like
I haven't watched
season
any
1 or
Black Mirror,
season
so-
2.
Okay.
Kind of got those kind of vibes.
Yeah.
We'll see. I also like IO Interactive like publishing a cool little thing like this,
Yeah, I think it's cool. I like it. There was one other one that looked kind of interesting, and it was like it had Shadowheart's voice in it.
Oh,
what was her name?
is that Jennifer English?
Yes.
Jennifer English?
I initially thought it was Expedition 33.
I also did.
So did I.
It's
Yes.
Is
Is
it
she
Tides
in
of
that too, maybe?
Annihilation?
She is. Yeah.
Yeah, which I realized they look very similar. I think both also French. Unless I might be wrong about that, but until
Tides
I
of
realized
Annihilation,
it
I
wasn't
think it's
turn-based.
Chinese.
Oh, is it?
I'm pretty
believe
sure it
so.
is because I think I got a press release about it, and it said it was from like Chengdu, China.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Tides of Annihilation, Chengdu,
Well off.
China. Yes, it is. So it's
That's
definitely
in
Chinese.
France, right? No, oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, my bad.
Chengdu is
yeah.
definitely in France.
Just
That's right.
stylistically looks
Southern
similar to
region.
Expedition 33, but I think this looks rad. I think it looks
so
really
too.
cool.
I think it looks sick. I was very impressed by it. I think it just really caught my attention.
Yeah.
Obviously Jennifer English's voice is great.
Yeah.
And the art design looked cool. The action looked fun. It just looks like a video game, but
Really
I'm
did.
but I was into it. I
love
thought it
one
was
of
quite
those.
cool.
I love an
Love me
action
words.
adventure-y, platformy combat type of thing. And like there was a lot of like her running and climbing and jumping up big things and exploring.
Yep.
And then the combat looked hard. So there's
Yep.
that.
If it's
Sure.
like Nier,
Yeah.
even the camera, I'm cool with it.
Lot going on. Like in terms of like she was on like she was like in London. Stuff was coming out
Yep.
of the river, but then also she's in like this weird crazy world and she's like got like a dress. I don't know what's happening, but I'm into it.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I think was there any other standouts? Any other major announcements?
Onimusha, Way of the
Yes.
Sword. The fact that we already got another trailer for that, I didn't expect that and they said it's coming 2026, and they showed a little bit of gameplay. They confirmed that it's a different character. It's not. I thought it was going to be Summon Osake again.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's the case. But the combat, I was really into it because they kind of highlighted a different aspect of it where you're using the environment a lot to your advantage. You're tripping up dudes. You're tripping them over chairs. You're like throwing a blanket at them and like they're getting all confused and hitting other enemies. You're flipping over tables to like set boundaries between you. Like, I don't know. I think that if that's like a part of the core gameplay and it's not like a gimmick, if you can like do a little player creativity, like you can kind of do stuff like that. It's interesting because it's different. It's not just like another hack and slash or another Souls-like style thing. So
I agree. I think, yeah, I mean, Capcom, man,
they're crazy
they
right
don't
now.
rest on
All
laurels.
cylinders.
They don't rest on laurels. They're like, what, you know, we've already got survival horror games. If you just do that with a sword, that's kind of boring. So what else can we do? And like, we've already got Devil May Cry. So what else can we do? It's like, I don't know, man. It's an incredible studio, incredible outfit, and they're just like everything they do is just so interesting. Even like the Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, you know, it was just really fantastic.
Love that game.
Little game from them. So yeah, I think it's cool. But I'm also just glad to see the franchise back, and I think people will love this as well. Like it's just, oh man, I'm just looking at some of this footage now when he cuts that guy in half. It
looks so
I
satisfying.
haven't played the first one. Do they seem like intrinsically related?
I would say
enemy designs
in the
look
sense of,
similar,
like,
and you have the demon gauntlet, and you're absorbing.
The color palette and overall visual style is quite similar, I think. But the first one was a survival horror, and this one is a straight action game. You know? So, but Onimushi was so awesome, man. I love it.
I might go and replay it. Like, I didn't realize how short it was. Again, I was like,
all those games back then were short.
Yeah. That's true. It's like, I'll play that. Damn, I might try and do that before it comes out. It looks cool.
We're getting an HD remaster of 2. Then hopefully that leads to 3. So we get HD Jean Reno. That'd be great.
HD Jean Reno, baby.
And
that was
nice.
like he was in Mission Impossible 1 that I watched, and I was like,
we
saw him. We're like, hey, Jean Reno, we love this guy. He rules.
And was it Emilio Estevez too?
Emilio Estevez as well. That was I was like, God, this takes me back.
That's a movie.
Exactly. I loved Emilio Estevez as well. He had all his father's charisma. He just love it.
He's the man. Last but not least, so this State of Play ended on a new Housemarque game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
that's cool. I didn't expect that at all. This is called.
Well, you know who
Source?
might have expected that.
I expected it so much.
Why is that?
So the lead, the character's name is Arjun, is played by my boyfriend Raul Coley. Some of you may know him from, he's in Bolt Gun. He plays Faz in Gears 5. He's the Origin in Fortnite. I'm trying to think of Rahul's video game credits, but is also a TV actor.
Plays himself in... does he have a voice in Like a Dragon? When he's that little card thing?
No, he's just a card. Yeah, he doesn't have a voice.
Someone say his best role.
Yeah, I prefer it when he doesn't speak, actually. So yeah, I've known about this for a while, obviously, and we knew it was dropping today. So to me, this was the greatest State of Play of all time because I was just waiting for it every single time something would come up. I was like, where is it? Yeah, I have to be careful about what I say because obviously I know a lot about this, and studio who made Returnal goddamn rules. And I don't even know what they've said publicly. But
they did come out and say, hey, we made Returnal and we liked that and we're going to do more of that with this. We're going to build on that. That's really the gist of it. And that's cool. Can I admit something?
I don't know how you... Go on.
So when I was watching the stream, my stream quality dropped. Like my internet dropped down. So the stream dropped to 240 or like 360p. Okay. And I saw the silhouette of a character in a long coat and kind of like a beard mustache with a gun, and I heard a very British voice, and I was like, Order 1886 is fucking back, oh my god. And then the stream kicked back on, and I was like, oh, that's sci-fi, man.
There's something wrong with you people.
Yeah, I'm broken.
You order people are such weirdos.
We are broken. There are dozens of us.
I love that game too. Yeah, I'm right there. No, but yeah, super excited about this one. It's rad. I think it's very, very, very cool, and the studio is awesome, and it's just a bunch of very cool people making cool stuff, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how else I can even talk about it. Very excited.
What I gleaned from this is like they're doubling down on storytelling, because storytelling was like a pretty fresh thing for them as far as I'm concerned with Returnal, and they were really good at it. So if they're leaning into that as well, that is very cool.
Yeah.
So much that they played around with Returnal that I sucked at that game, but I loved it.
I love that game. I just don't know how you improve on that game. That's the thing. I just mean that. Like, it's so, what a task ahead of Housemarque to try and go back to that format. It's like, we could do better. I'm like, can you though? Can anyone? And I honestly believe that. I just think that
Returnal
was
is genuinely incredible. That organ boss fight is probably one of my favorite boss fights in any game ever. Like the music in that game's gorgeous. The use of the DualSense, it rules.
Everything. Sound design in that game is, I think. I mean, I'm trying to think of I can't think of a game that has better sound design than that game.
It's a great game.
I'd say Tak and the Power of Juju. But
oh yeah, of course. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Come on, put some respect.
Oh, the Order 1886. They did definitely have a completion problem with Returnal. Like not a lot of people finished that game. You can see it on publicly available trophies. So a lot of people really dropped off. It is obviously very challenging. So
I think its challenge lay in its structure. That was the thing. It was, I think moment to moment it actually wasn't that challenging. It was, don't get me wrong, but like the fact that you had to do these big long runs, and some of these runs could take longer than others, and
you couldn't leave. Remember, like at the very beginning, you couldn't stop.
You couldn't save. That was a big problem.
Yeah.
So I think lots of structural things held that game back from achieving a broader cut through. But I was fortunate enough to be able to get through it all, and it was just so rewarding.
I was fortunate enough to get good and be an elite gamer,
a pro gamer.
No, I mean, you know what I mean. I had the time to sit there and just grind it out, because I didn't have to worry about I got to pause now, and like you can't pause. Well, you can pause it, but like save it. I mean, and
but if your PlayStation was in rest mode and it turned off or something, like
all that sort of shit, you'd lose your whole run, and it was. And
they fixed that. They changed that, but I remember that.
They have co-op now too. Didn't they add a co-op update?
Did they?
Am I crazy?
Maybe
I am wrong.
You are crazy.
I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
you can play co-op in it now.
You can.
You're not crazy.
And there's a revival.
Doesn't that rule?
2022.
That is extremely sick.
Damn,
what a cool idea.
I missed that.
Yeah.
I think I wonder if it's a lot of people's first, roguelikes as well, that maybe for a lot of people, because it was one of the early PS5 launch titles, people were just like really excited to play it. It obviously, I feel like, was marketed very well, but that genre as a whole, if you don't get it, can be very frustrating. Like you don't understand that the reward is in dying.
It's also,
a lot of players who aren't used to that would just be annoyed.
Yeah, it's also the fact that it's bullet hell roguelike. Like it's two very challenging genres combined. It's not just like deck builder roguelike. This is like, a very demanding, very stressful experience to be able to play it. Absolutely.
Apparently, they have said officially, Saros features permanent progression systems where every death reshapes the world while offering new upgrades to overcome challenges. And a grounded performance by Rahul Kohli.
Grounded.
I love a grounded performance. Yeah.
Look, I think this game's really cool. I'm looking forward to people, finding out more about it. It's rad. I'm very, very excited about it. Also, the creative director on the game, Gregory, is Australian.
Hell yeah!
Where from?
Shout out.
Where are they from?
I think he worked in Melbourne for a while. I don't know where he's from, but I think he's been in Sydney and Melbourne. He's now in Helsinki.
All right, cool.
But
have to get him on the pod.
He's very Aussie. I'm sure he'd be down. Well, you'd have to ask.
Talk Australian things.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "G'day, mate," and then he'll say the same, and then we'll just do that for a while.
Tim Tams and fairy
bread. We'll do that bit
right?
for a while. That's right.
You got it, dude.
Fairy bread, baby.
That's all we need.
It.
Well, they did say that they are showing gameplay and info later this year for Soros, so I'm looking forward to that. It's slated for 2026 as of right now, but I think that's about it for State of Play. Anything else off the top of your head, guys, you want to highlight before we move on?
Nah.
I think it was State of Play is the good one or the not good one that they label. They have
What's the other
the
one?
big one is the
big one.
I get all the words mixed up
because they have one that's called State of Play and then they have something else. What's the other one called?
Showcase?
Developer Direct?
No,
that's Xbox.
That's Xbox.
But isn't there like a version of that?
I thought the State of Play was meant to be the big one. That they only put that label on it when it's like a banger. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Maybe,
it's actually
I think
the
it's
other
the
label.
opposite, I think.
Okay, right, fair enough. Because this was not State
Yeah.
of Play, or this is not like their top tier showing. Like as a showcase, it's like it's cool, fair enough. Okay. But
I don't feel like you drop a banger in February.
Yeah.
I guess you save it for June. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, I think because Jeff Keighley put up a post. He's like, how would you... He always does that. Cheeky Jeff. He always
I
puts his
actually
little
went, I
post
went
up.
straight to his Twitter. I was like,
afterwards, he's like,
what's the
hey,
rating?
let's do some shit here. Let's see what happens. And then he's like, how would you rate it? A, B, C, or D? And everyone's like, D.
it does have a D or below.
60% of the vote was D or below.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
how did you guys feel about it? Because, like, obviously for me, I was super excited because my partner
Sure.
he's the protagonist, and I was just so excited. Like, it's like a huge day for him, like an incredible thing. So for me, this is like one of the coolest of all time. But like, what was the outside perspective of the state of play?
I think it was a lot of stuff I'm interested in, but I think it's always a matter of like the hubbub around it beforehand, and there were some wild rumors around this one, and people putting all their expectations like, finally we're going to hear about this, finally we're going to hear about that, we're going to see more Death Stranding 2. There were rumors of a Bloodborne thing and a God of War remake things, and none of that happened. So I don't care, but like I can see why a lot of people are like going on Jeff Keighley's Twitter and be like, D-.
based on things that aren't true, then you won't like things. Yeah, I thought it was like trying to look at all the other games. I feel like that I like over a lot of things that I was like, you know what, I'll play a lot of these games, and that's a win for me.
Good
really.
third party stuff.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, I mean, I've only watched parts of it. I haven't watched the whole thing, but certainly the parts that I saw looked pretty cool. Definitely some stuff that I'm interested in. But yeah, I mean, so it'd be interesting to, because it does feel like Sony's been keeping some powder dry for a while now. You know, like we had their first lot of releases in this generation, and it feels like we're waiting for their second slate of releases in the second half of the generation. You know, some of those have been teased, some of them have been revealed. I'm just waiting for Sony to really like pull the curtain back on the last phase of the PS5, which is such a crazy fucking thing to say.
Feels like yesterday.
It feels like just yesterday this console came out. It feels like there's only ever been 3 games released on it, right? But the reality is we are getting towards the end of the PS5's life cycle. The third-party studios will only make one more PS5 exclusive before they are also making PS6 games. And I'm interested to see, you know, when that chapter really unfurls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well said. Well, we got a lot more we got to talk about, including an interview and the games we've been playing. But before that, a word from our sponsor. Hey, this podcast is brought to you by Factor. Look, I got one right here.
There it is.
Lucy, you are new to the Factor world, the Factor life. So if you don't know, Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. You got a bunch of meals that show up and then they just heat up in the microwave and you're good to go. How has your experience been? Because I've been eating these things for quite some time now.
They have. Is it bad if I say they have the X Factor? That does sound bad. I'm sorry.
Okay,
for
we
saying
can't.
that.
We're gonna cut that.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, I you know me. I'm a notoriously busy person, and I really want to be better about making sure that I'm not just reaching for the frozen pizza at the back of my freezer, and I want to be more mindful about taking care of myself. I have high cholesterol. I definitely should be more mindful about taking care of myself, and so I've been really enjoying using Factor because it is super, super quick. And so at the end of a long day, when I cannot be bothered to cook, I know that there is something there that is nutritious and good for me. But also the fact that it actually tastes really good too, which is something that is a bonus because obviously as long as it tastes good and it's healthy, that's a win-win for me. And so I've been having a really good time. I even shared it. I shared with my friends the other day.
That's big.
And even they were like, damn, this is really good. So
it's definitely like legit stuff. They have a lot of options for basically every type of diet and every type of preference. Keto, calorie smart, vegan stuff, veggie stuff, all different types of meat choices, fun little add-ons. They also offer like all this extra fun stuff. Like you can get like juices and protein smoothies if you want. So it's definitely worth checking out. And, you know, whether you work from home or you go to work, they're easy to throw in a bag. And it's one less thing to worry about. That's the biggest thing. Maybe you don't like preparing your own food. Maybe you have a week where you just don't have time to prepare your food. Factor is just a really good option for that stuff.
Yeah, I've had a really awkward week with a couple of trips lining up and then doing stuff in the evenings. And so I didn't have my usual meal prep day, but I had Factor ready to go. And so I still feel good about myself and what I'm putting in my body. And it feels like it's cheating because it's microwaving. You're like, damn, I didn't I didn't put any effort into this.
But it's real food.
It is real food.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying I had a pork cutlet the other day. And there was like some cheddar grits too that were really good.
Oh, yeah.
There was a chicken dish that I really enjoyed.
They got good broccoli and green
pasta.
bean sides,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Also good pastas. Like this is green chili queso and chicken pasta.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I might have one of the veggie ones tonight. There's a sweet potato one that's been calling my name.
Highly recommend.
Anyway, we could go on, but you could just try it yourself. You can eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/FPS50off and use code FPS50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That is code FPS50off at factormeals.com/FPS50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Thank you again to Factor for sponsoring this episode, and the link is in the description.
All right, we're back, and we are going to take a user question. You can submit user questions at contact@friendspersecond.com. We also have a Substack, right, Lucy? What's that called again?
It's friendspersecond.substack.com.
Yes, it is. This question comes from Richard, who actually took advantage of sending us an audio question. You could do that. You could write it if you feel comfortable, but if you want to put your voice out there, you could do that too. So let us play Richard's question now.
Hey, friends per second. I interrupt your regularly scheduled questions with the dulcet tones from New Zealand, Australia's East Island. My question is about influence, spiked by the opening of Season 4. As my aging carcass completes another circuit of the Daystar, I'm reminded shit's not getting easier. My knees now sound like a coffee grinder. Lucy's been open about chronic fatigue. Ralph claims to play tennis, but where's the photo proof? And Jake says he goes to the beach, which we know is a lie, because American beaches are toxic wastelands. Do you think discussing gamer health is important, and do you feel a responsibility to help listeners with it? It's inspiring to hear Lucy keep going despite her daily challenges, and I'd love to know if you think healthism deserves a more deliberate space in the podcast. Could you help us all get off the couch, or is that one step too far? Thanks for the show. You're rock, even if 1/3 of you has an Australian accent.
Can't believe you chose a clearly hostile
user question.
That's very on a podcast where there's 2 Australians, no less. I mean,
I'm sorry.
This is very upsetting.
I'm sorry. But it was funny. I thought it was a very entertaining
It's a good question.
Great microphone quality.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Really great
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow.
That's a proper setup right there.
Yeah,
Making
thank you,
some
Richard.
content, I'm guessing. Yeah.
I'm a big shill for trying to encourage gamers to get fit. During COVID, I started a thing that I was like starting a hashtag that was basically Level Up 2020 and Level Up 2021, which is like my means of trying to encourage people to just work out at any point. I think when you are a gamer and you have an audience who are a lot of gamers, that's people who are slightly more predisposed, I guess not really now that streaming is so addictive, but slightly more predisposed to sitting a lot. So I like always want to encourage people, like, if you're watching this video at home, have you thought about doing it while lifting dumbbells or doing it on an exercise bike? I don't know. I'm a big shill for gamers also being fit, and the gamification of fitness is one thing that helped me do it more than anything else. And that like I track how heavy each workout is, and I put a little plus next to it if I think I'm ready to go heavier the next time. And using like doing weights as an RPG made me go far more often. But I also work out religiously. I do most of my cardio in MetaQuest. Yeah. I love it. It
That's
keeps
awesome.
me going. I'm a big fan. So
That's cool.
I'm just gamers getting fit. You got to do it. Move your body. It's important for every facet of your life and your mental health.
See, I picked this question because I knew Alanah would have a better answer than the 3 of us. Although, like Ralph, you play. I know you play tennis.
Is that what you're saying, right, Luce?
No. So I mean, the thing that I'm annoying about is cholesterol. I don't think I've done that in the podcast.
Yeah, that got to you too, huh?
No. So my family, basically all of us have a genetic a thing. I think it's called familial hypercholesterolemia, FH. And it basically means that I kind of like don't break down bad cholesterol at all.
Wow.
So I don't know what the American conversion is here. English people, our cholesterol, you're supposed to have it under 5. When I had my cholesterol tested, I was 16. My cholesterol was 10.5. So I was walking around with blood like pate, basically. And so I've been medicated ever since then. I now have to take a shot every 2 weeks that I have to like self-inject. My grandmother died at like in her early 50s, and she was, you know, like stick thin because of this cholesterol thing that we all have, because we just didn't know. And so it can be really like obviously awful for your heart health. And so I'm really annoying when my friends go to the doctor. I'm like, have you had your cholesterol checked? Have you had your cholesterol checked?
I've never done that.
I've never done that.
Everyone
What would be a sign that my cholesterol is not good?
It shows up in normal blood work, I think.
It shows, yeah.
Okay.
You just get a blood test.
All the time,
but if it gets really bad,
yes,
like terribly bad, it can deposit around like your knuckles and under your eyes and on parts of your skin. Yeah, if it's really terrible, sometimes it can.
Jesus. Sounds bleak.
Yeah. So
okay.
I'm not so good at talking about. You know, I'm not as religious about getting up and working out, and I try and do walks and stuff every so often. But you know, I am very tired too. So, but I am very militant about my cholesterol and taking my medication.
Getting a blood test is just a good thing to do at any point in time.
Yeah.
Really, great way to find out what you need to focus on for sure.
Yep.
A lot of data, a lot of metadata in that
Love
blood.
that. See, like I said, it's RPGs. If you can treat your body like an RPG, you know, it's so inspiring. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah, treat it like an
content creators
RPG. I completely fall off after 40 hours.
That's right. Totally.
Don't we all?
I just max the instat, and then I can't do anything else.
It's charisma and nothing else.
Charisma and nothing else.
Right. Do you guys think content creators have a responsibility to be role models in this space, like video game content creators?
I can't say like content creators in general. It is something that I personally do really try to encourage. But
Sure.
That it feels like a personal thing. As somebody who used to be overweight and had a bunch of health issues that came from that, I now like just try really hard to be fit, and it helped me a lot. So I wouldn't say people in general. I don't know. It's content creators having responsibilities a hard topic to tackle in general.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't think you should ever look up to a content creator.
Absolutely.
I think
You don't have to do anything to
Yeah,
speak to a camera on the internet.
Yeah, you don't have to. I think it's just like, I wouldn't say as a responsibility. I think just like as a person, it's good to talk about. And, you know, like Richard, thank you for saying this, like saying when I talk about my chronic fatigue, you know, I just do that anyway. Like if I'm talking to you in person, like Alanah and I talk about it all the time. Because otherwise, if you just hide stuff, then I don't know. Who does it help?
Also makes you miserable.
Yeah. And also, if you can't talk about it, then it's got control over you in a way, I guess.
Mm.
I'm a big mental health guy. Mine isn't the best, but if there's anything I touch upon, it's that. Because it's in terms of like, it can really, it all goes into a pot in terms of like maintaining your passion, the feeling of missing out. Dealing with like internet toxicity around, like you're just trying to look up a guide for your favorite game and then you see all this terrible shit about your favorite game, and that can like bother some people. So it's about like managing all that. And I'm always the first one to say like, hey, you know, if you're feeling like burned out from gaming or something, like you don't have to watch me. You could take a break. Like we all need to like step away from things in life. And yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like stumbling through it, but essentially I'm the only things I've really brought up, because I'm like a sack of potatoes, is your brain and working on your brain. And it's always an endless pursuit. It's not a flip a switch and then you're fine. Yeah. And
Well said.
Also,
can I just say that I would not have expected Ralph to be a tennis guy?
Yeah, it's like
him.
this thing. Every time he brings it up, we had to put a moratorium on him bringing it up, because it would be
I just
his
don't
only
feel
thing
like it
every
fits
week.
the character sheet. It's
Really?
Ralph
Tell me
tennis.
why.
How are your
Tell me why.
knees?
Tell me why.
How are
Tell
your
me why.
knees?
Go on.
too
It's
tall.
it's just, I feel like I feel like
Go
tennis
on.
is like
Say it. Just say
kind of
it.
a rich people's sport. It's kind of bougie.
It's a posh
No,
sport.
no.
Right?
Pickleball has become the new bougie.
Well, he's
Is
not
that
playing
really?
polo, but like
Yeah.
Sure, I know what you mean. I get you.
Yeah.
Do I strike you as a more salt of the earth kind of guy?
yes.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Oh, that's very kind. No, well, the truth is that I used to play tennis when I was a kid. That was it. It's that thing that And I mean, you realize it more and more as you get older, I think. Like the things that get coded into you when you're a kid, they are hard coded into you.
Racism.
And then you like that's the Long Island talking.
Hey,
you
no,
know?
it's not.
That's right. But like you don't even realize how important that stuff is until then you come back to it years later and you're like, oh shit, I remember what this was like, and I remember that I really loved this and I really still love it now. Like that honestly was the genesis of it, where I just like my mum forced me to go when I was a kid. I was into it when I was a kid. I stopped playing for like, a billion years and then just got back into it on a whim. Well, my mum bought me a tennis racket for my birthday and then, recently. And I was like, all right, let's have a crack. But it's been really good. And just
it's
on
great
that topic
cardio.
of
The
cardio is out of control.
Yeah.
I think I struggle with boring exercise. Like weights, so boring, running, so boring. All this shit. I struggle with it. Whereas tennis, it's like, it's very fun. It's a game, and it's a very skill-based game and it's competitive, which I really, I'm an extremely competitive person. So, it ticks a lot of boxes for that regard, in those regards.
Yeah, I mean, so much
like playing
of it is...
IRL topspin. So,
it's a good
exactly.
game. Yeah.
Topspin actually inspired tennis.
No way!
It's so much of getting fit, I think, is about finding something you like. You can tell people to go for a run and do whatever, and it won't work unless it's something that they actually enjoy. If you tell someone to go to the gym and start squatting, if they don't like it, they're just not going to do it again. Really, it's about tricking yourself into finding the thing that works. I do highly recommend everyone just go for a 30-minute walk every day. Just please, just do that. It's so good for you. Just log off, bro. But finding the thing you like is the thing you will return to. That's
absolutely.
Really
but I would also say, and again, like we're like most people who watch this podcast are like 25 to 40. Okay, like we do not hit the young demographic here. Okay,
we're not down with Gen Z.
So
we're not down with Gen Z.
So I would say, like, team sports is not the kind of thing you naturally gravitate towards when you're older in terms of seeking exercise. You usually go like, oh, I'm going to start cycling or I'm going to start going to the gym or whatever. But I'd really encourage you to like take a punt on a team sport.
That's the thing. A lot more of my friends
I don't have any friends.
No, I'm sorry. But you're saying more of your friends are doing team sports?
More of my friends are doing team sports. Like I know multiple people who do football or soccer.
Sure.
Yeah, it was Sony Santa Monica and Naughty Dog both have soccer teams that I will occasionally play in that league. So
that's cool.
We have 2 soccer teams. It's made up entirely of Naughty Dog and SMS employees, and they play in a league. It's really cool.
That's great. So my point is, give team sports a crack if you are thinking about like, I need to get fit and maybe the gym isn't working for you. Try that, because that having someone next to you to like give you some encouragement, being social as well, and that's important to me personally because like I fucking sit in this garage 24/7.
Yeah, you
I
got
see
a
my
real
family
den,
obviously.
dude.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So being able to like go out and just like chat to other people, other human beings in person, like that actually is very important to me. And it's a huge part of it. So, and again, I don't do that at the gym because you just lock in with headphones. You're just like,
that's part of why I like it so much. But I feel you. I'm a huge fan of going to the gym. Most of my weightlifting though I do while watching TV. So I've said it in a million YouTube videos on my own channel where I'm like, hey, if you have time to be watching this video, you totally have time to lift weights. Like I've through watching every episode of Sopranos last year, I think I was weightlifting the whole time.
Nice.
Like you
Any
kind of stop
favorite
thinking
episodes?
about it.
Any favorite episodes?
I love the intervention. I'm sure that's like a really cheesy pick, but it's so,
I said my piece, Chrissy.
so good.
I said my piece.
It's so good.
Absolutely.
God, what a
banger.
great show.
What
True delight.
I need to finish that. I got to like season 5 and then Many Saints of Newark came out and everyone was like, oh, it doesn't spoil it. There's a fucking voiceover. Like the second line is a massive spoiler for the end of the Sopranos.
It doesn't matter how much gets spoiled in Sopranos. It doesn't
I
matter.
agree.
It's
It's
about
the
just
journey.
watching it.
It's about the journey.
That's it. So
yeah.
Yep.
Great question.
Thanks for the advice. I needed that
you.
advice, guys, because I've been working out for 5 days a week now for like 8 months. And the other day, halfway through, I was just like, I fucking hate this. I hate this so much.
Like,
so
they
I gotta find
sponsor
a
me,
different
full
way.
disclosure, but I really highly recommend MetaQuest. So like part of why they sponsored me is because I was such a shill for it already.
Are you on
So it was like a very good partnership. Yeah, Supernatural's my favorite, but like FedXR is really good. Lamil's Body Combat is basically free Supernatural because Supernatural has a subscription. But like Supernatural, I was doing while I was training for a boxing match, 45-minute boxing sessions. You're dying by the end of it, but it feels like a video game. Like even Beat Saber, you can really get your heart rate up.
Beat Saber
if you do it properly and you actually do all those ones that make you squat and shit. And
totally. And you'll
jack the
forget you're
speed.
working out. Like I cannot recommend it more highly. It rules.
Man,
Big fan.
I used to do Rumble, and I'm really sad because it closed down in downtown San Francisco, and it's boxing. But then you kind of do 15 minutes boxing, and then you do weights, and then you go back and do boxing, then you do weights.
Awesome.
And it was in the dark. It was incredible. So if you had any fear about being in a class and if you were feeling self-conscious, you couldn't be because you can't see anyone. And
How's
then
the boxing work though?
But you would just be against the bag.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I know, you're not like, imagine.
You're fighting people in the dark?
I mean,
It's crazy.
Yeah, don't talk
Learning
about
about
my
all these
don't talk about my
new-
It
fight
sounds
club.
fun though, actually.
But no, it was really, really fun. And there was a group of us that went, and then of course it closed down because everything in San Francisco closes down.
Damn.
R.I.P.
I just learned that hot yoga isn't like sexy. It's about the temperature. I always assumed it was like
I think it's a scam.
like
Yeah.
nice, like
It
sexy
can be pretty
yoga.
sexy though.
I guess
Can also be sexy.
allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try that.
Allegedly.
Anyway, Richard, thanks for your question.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we got an interview with some of the folks at Rebel Wolves.
Yes.
Ralph, do you know who we're talking to specifically?
I do. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm going to get the pronunciation. Jakub Szamałek. SZ Amalek. So I apologize. I'm totally going to mispronounce that. But really appreciate Jakub being coming on board. Just as by way of background, Rebel Wolves are a new studio that was formed by a number of ex-CD Projekt Red developers, and obviously other people as well. But certainly that's some of the major talent there is former CD Projekt Red.
Mhm.
They just revealed their new game called Blood of the Dawnwalker.
Yeah.
And it was a sick as hell reveal trailer, and the music was just straight Witcher music, man. And I was like, hell yes, give it, just tap, hook me up, baby. So it looked really cool. We wanted to chat with the team about what it was like to, form a new studio, what they're aiming at with this new project, and here it is.
Jakub, thank you so much for joining us. It is lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, we're coming fresh off the bat of, kind of seeing what you guys are all working on over at Rebel Wolves. But we wanted to go back to the beginning. Can you tell us the origin story of the studio? How did everything get put into motion? And how long ago was that?
Yeah, good question. I'm not good with dates, so let me think for a moment. I think it was late spring 2021. So by that point, I was freshly unemployed and enjoying it. I was getting ready to move across the ocean from Poland to Canada. And I had some contracts lined up. So I knew I had work to do, but wasn't really thinking too much about that side of things. And then I got a phone call from Konrad Tomaszkiewicz, who's now the CEO, sorry, not the CEO, but the game director here at Rebel Wolves. And he said, listen, I'm thinking about my next move too. And I've been talking to some companies and I'm getting offers, but actually I'm thinking, why don't I go independent? Why don't we set up a company together? And would you be interested in doing that? And I said, sure, let's talk. So we met up and we talked. And what I liked the most about what Konrad says, was that he said, I would get to write whatever I want, and he won't be telling me how to write my dialogues, which I appreciated, and that was a very tempting offer. And so we talked about what we liked in games and what we'd like our next game to be, and it was pretty clear to me that we are well aligned on that. I think we are both really into old hardcore RPGs, but we are aware that there was a time and place for them. The modern audience might appreciate some elements of them, but that vision would need to be updated. We felt that there was something in old RPGs that we kind of, lost along the way, that we could reintroduce into this niche. Yeah, so we started talking and decided, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then we realized none of us knows anything about the business side of things. So that was an interesting ride. I would say a very, very steep learning curve. But we talked to a lot of people over the next few months. But in the end, we did find an investor who was ready to help us out. And by that point, we already had, I think, 10 people, most of them really senior developers whom we knew from our years at CD Projekt.
Yeah. And so just for the audience's sake, what did you previously work on in terms of your...
I was a senior writer on The Witcher 3. I was a principal writer on Cyberpunk. I wrote Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales, which is a lovely game, maybe less known than the other CDPR games. I doubled my things in Gwent. And now I'm working on The Blood of Dawnwalker.
Yeah. So does that mean that you were like the first person that Conrad went to when he was starting this up?
I think I was.
Okay.
Not to boast, but
I'm sure you boast a little.
I get that.
No, okay. I think I probably was the first. Yeah, but then we very quickly started reaching out to other people we thought might be interested, people we wanted to work with, and I'm very happy with the team that we have managed to create. I think mostly Conrad. I don't want to steal his limelight. And I feel like each of the important elements of the game has someone with great experience, vision, and hard-working ethics at the helm of it.
So how big is the team right now? And because you're in Canada, is everyone remote? Do you have a central location?
We do have physical offices in Warsaw, Poland, but we are very flexible when it comes to how and where you want to work. So we have some people who work fully remote, like myself. I'm based in Nova Scotia, Canada. Most of the team is still from Poland and living in Poland. And some of them show up at the office every once in a while, for the coffee and the juices and other freebies, and supposedly the company. Some people come and go depending on how they feel. It's always nice to, be in the same physical space when it comes to meetings or brainstorming. But sometimes, for example, my team, my lovely writers, they prefer to write their dialogues at home and come to the office for reviews and stuff. So we do have a bunch of people working remotely from other parts of the world, but if there's any limit, is kind of the time zone spread. Sure. So we are trying to keep things between East Coast US, Europe, because beyond that it gets difficult. But
I feel that, believe me.
Yeah.
We should know. Yeah.
Really interested in something you said a second ago, though, about old school RPGs, and you feel like there are certain things that need to be updated for a modern audience, but also some things you want to bring back from that old school. What are the sort of old school things that you think don't really work these days?
Well, what I really like about video games and writing for video games is the freedom. So video games are this unique medium which invites choice, which grants you agency. You're not just passively observing someone doing something. You get to decide. And I think that's the area that games should explore, because this is where new exciting things lie. And I feel that in the past years, and in the pursuit of technical excellency, great graphics, and I know adrenaline-packed action sequences, we kind of forgot about that essence, which again I think is choice and freedom to shape the world as you see fit. And one game that both Conrad and I kept coming back to was Fallout 2. Where you leave the vault, what your goal is, and there's nothing stopping you from going directly there. You can take a detour. You can figure things out on your own, or you can try to follow the most obvious storyline if you want to have a smooth experience, or you can really check every nook and cranny and figure out the secret playthroughs and possibilities. And we felt that freedom, that promise of early computer RPGs has been sidelined, and we thought, okay, is it at all possible to have that and combine that with like modern day design principles and graphics and all that. And we think that it is possible. It is hard, but we thought that it's very well worth a try. We both felt and I think everyone like in the leadership of the company felt very strongly that we don't want to do a reskin of a game that we've already worked on. That we very much like to do something fresh. I can't tell you much about the game we're working on beyond what we've already shared, but I think that promise is coming into fruition, that we are doing something slightly differently.
Just try drilling down that further. I just think it's really interesting. Would you say The Witcher 3 delivered on that promise of freedom, or do you think it tends more towards what you described as a more prescribed, like focused on that technical excellence, focused on that experience?
I think there was a considerable element of freedom, and like you had a lot of control over how you play the game. But I think that The Witcher 3 and like many other open world RPGs, they're like a train network. So you have stations, and you can get on a train. You can go from station A to B, disembark, get out, sightsee, get on the train, and go to a different place. But the rails are still there. Like there are certain rules as to how you play the game, like how you unlock next story beat. And it might not be immediately obvious from the player perspective, but as someone who thinks a lot about how the story is structured, I am very aware of these constraints, and I think that we could go beyond them. We could try making something that's even more flexible. And it has been done before. Again, it's something that we have seen in earlier video games, but it's something that invites another layer of complexity. And making AAA games is already such a daunting challenge, really. I keep telling my friends who are not video game developers that making video games has all the challenges and frustrations of working with tech, with all the challenges and frustrations of working with art, and you have to make it all congeal. And it isn't easy, but it's worth it.
Just out of interest, have you had a chance to play Kingdom Come Deliverance 2?
Not yet. I played part 1, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was such an interesting game, and so fresh in so many ways. Loved it.
Yeah, because I think that's
I sucked at combat.
The combat is a lot. It's a lot.
I do want to know from your experience, just in terms of what you work on with that level of freedom with games. To the layman, how do you guys do that? Is it just a lot of quest and writing stuff? Like what else goes into that?
I think honestly, it's about understanding what your priorities are. Because I think when you start working on a game, if you don't really think hard about what is it that you are trying to achieve, then things will just grow haphazardly, and then things will stop working together. It's like every team is working on their own intricate little cogwheel, and you have the gameplay team, and you have the story team, and everyone is working on it, and then you bring them all together, and they don't work. Like it's glitching out, it's just sparks flying, and you're frantically trying to make it work. And we all of us, we've worked on games for quite a while now, so we are aware of just how complex this is. But this is why it was very important to us to establish what we're going for. What is it that we want to achieve? And like this term that kept coming back and back was the promise and idea of a narrative sandbox. So, like you have sandbox games which provide you so many different gameplay mechanics to play with. We wanted to do the same, but with the story, to open up the structure, to give players these building blocks that they can combine into different combos. And so, like in our game, we aren't really thinking and dividing quests into main quests and side quests. So there's the beginning and there's the end, but like how you weave your path from point A to B is really entirely up to you. And our goal and hope is that no two playthroughs will really be the same, because there will be just so many moving parts that you will have a truly unique experience as you're playing the game. Right. And this was our goal from the get-go. And I think because we had that idea crystallized so very, very early on, this was, while things were still on paper, and we stuck to it throughout the whole development so far. And I think this is like a big element of why I think it's coming together.
I mean, speaking of how complex it is to put a game together, I'm interested in how the team dynamic is working, because obviously a lot of you work together at CDPR. Now you are at a new, smaller outfit. Like, how's that working dynamic changed? Is it easier?
Is it easier?
Is it like working in a more agile, smaller team versus, hundreds and hundreds of people?
It is, yeah. In many ways it is. I find it nice and refreshing to know who's responsible for what. Because when you're working at a bigger company inside a bigger team, there comes a moment where there are managers of managers and producers of producers, and it's all becoming very confusing. I think there are definitely benefits to having a smaller team, in that you can communicate your ideas with more ease and more efficiently, and you can get things done, or maybe you can kind of adjust the direction of where the game is more swiftly. But of course, it comes with challenges, and one of the challenges is, you'd always want to have more people to work on your game. But as the wise saying goes, 9 women will not give birth in a month, and some things can be fixed with more people. So I personally, I'm very happy with the fact that we have a nimbler, slightly smaller team, and that we're also honestly thinking of creating a game that provides you with plenty of entertainment, plenty of things to discover and play with, but we aren't aiming to overwhelm you with content, because that's like one of the very first things that we kind of discussed internally once we kind of we had the core team, is that we don't want to participate in this bidding auction. Like, who will make a bigger game? Like, our game is 300 hours to complete, and our game is 500 hours to complete. And I'm like, who has the time? Who has the time? I definitely don't. And I feel like many other players aren't necessarily as invested in the idea of sinking ungodly hours into the game, and might be more interested in the quality of the experience. And that's what we want to focus on.
I was going to say, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about the blood of Dawnwalker as much as you can. Talk about it. I mean, can you talk about the origins of the game? Why vampires? Why this historical period?
So when we started talking with Conrad, I asked him, well, what is it that you want to do? Like, what comes to mind? And he said, well, I don't know much, but I know this. I want to make a game about a hero protagonist who's a vampire by night and a human by day. And I said, cool, that's a nice premise. I like it. Is there anything more? And he said, no, you take it away. Do your thing. And so I thought, okay, well, what do we do with that? Because it's a cool starting point, but of course you could go off in very different directions, very different tangents. And it just so happened that I was reading this book at the time. It's a very kind of heavy, thick historical account of the 14th century, and it's in a nutshell, it's called "Distant Mirror" by Barbara Tuchman. And in a nutshell, it's about how the 14th century sucked, like how it was the worst time to be alive, like famines and the plague and just wars. Or, well, speaking of Europe, maybe it was fantastic elsewhere, but definitely 14th century Europe, I do not recommend it. And I felt fascinated by that place, like, so dark and weird, and so this feeling of coming doom and the deep conviction that the world is falling apart. I don't know, as Eastern Europeans, we were drawn to this kind of shit. We were like, yeah, this is what I have in my bones. And I thought, okay, like 14th century. Most of us have worked on The Witcher, so kind of the medieval fantasy seemed like a good starting point. And of course, we're all reading of COVID at the time. So reading about the plague in the 14th century, I was like, okay, that's an element that resonates with me, and I'm sure it might resonate with other people. But then, like, the other challenge we had in front of ourselves, I thought, was that vampires are cool. We all love vampires. You know, I'm always happy to watch a movie about vampires or read a book about vampires because they're just so cool. Such a cool premise. But also, we have all watched so many movies about vampires and read so many things about vampires. So the idea was like, or the problem was, how do we make them fresh? How do we make them interesting and our own? And since I was reading this book about medieval Europe, one thing that stood out was the fundamental role of the feudal order. Like, we had the lord at the top, and then his knights, and then the peasants, and so on. And I thought, what would happen if we had vampires at the top of the structure? What would happen if they emerged from the shadows? And because why wouldn't they? You know, they're so powerful and nearly mortal. And what would happen if they'd ascend to the very top and say, okay, so now you'll be paying your taxes to us, but you'll be doing so in blood because we have no interest in your gold. We just want the blood. How would people respond to that, especially if the vampires would be offering something in return? And that was the starting point to like a lot of the world building that we did, and it started coming together into something we feel has this unique vibe, and it's something that's recognizable on one hand, and the other hand, it's I think it has that fresh element to it.
How does it work playing in the sandbox of vampires, like picking and choosing, like, you know, which parts of the lore, which parts of the abilities, which historical accounts or writings do you want to lean into? How did you create like a vampire Bible or something?
Oh yeah. We have plenty of very secret documents about what our vampires do and don't. And we actually did have like a long list of all the like abilities and skills that vampires have in all sorts of different works of fiction, and like what do we want to stick to and what we don't want to stick to. Well, I think we went through the list and we considered several things. Like, A, is something cool? Like, is it something that speaks to us? And then B, we're considering like, is this a promising thing to explore from the gameplay perspective? Because there are some, say, vampires in most works of fiction are vulnerable to garlic, but is that something that we necessarily want to explore? Do we want to have like garlic amulets and like, you know, debuffs from eating garlic? We thought, well, not so much. So some things we decided, or like in some works of fiction, vampires cannot cross running water. Rather frustrating in an open world game. So we went through that list and went for things that we felt were cool, but also kind of felt free to do away with things that we didn't feel would translate into just a fun experience for players. And then I had this thought that again, it would be nice to like add a unique twist to our vampires to kind of figure something out that make them stand out. And we decided to make teeth fundamental to our vampires' lore and values, because like when you think about vampires, you know, it's the two incisors. Like you could take a pumpkin and draw the incisors on it, and you know it's a vampire pumpkin. So like this is the essence of vampires. So in our world, if you want to create a vampire, you take off a fang and jam it in someone's heart. And to remove teeth from a vampire is an utter form of humiliation. And the teeth of a vampire have unique properties that can be explored and utilized in many different ways. So we, you know,
that's fucking really cool. Can I?
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's sick.
Yeah. So we picked from here and there the stuff that we liked, and I think we put it into something that's ours, and I'm really excited about sharing it with players.
That's awesome. How do you I mean, I imagine, because obviously you've done some pretty iconic work across The Witcher. You and the team, obviously, you have done iconic work across The Witcher and Cyberpunk. How do you take what's great about that sort of work and let it inform your future work without necessarily falling into old rhythms and creating things that players might expect? Like, how do you really push yourself into like new creative spaces that players can't predict?
Well, it's very easy for me because I'm a perfectionist, so nothing I ever do is good enough. So I finish working on something and I'm like, nah, that's it could have been so much better. And so I wouldn't recommend this as a creative process to anyone. But the upside is that you're always thinking about like other ways of doing things, other possibilities. So yeah, I am extremely proud of the games I worked on, but I'm also aware that there were some paths that we didn't take, which I think might have led us somewhere interesting. So I think we try to identify what is it that we really liked about the games we worked on in the past. What is the essence? Like if you were to boil it down, what would be at the very bottom of the pot? What is the sticky stuff at the bottom of the pot?
Yeah.
And so we apply that, and also we try to bring new stuff that sorry.
What is that sticky stuff? I'm just.
What is the sticky stuff?
Yeah, what is for you personally? What is that sticky stuff?
For me, that's I'm not sure if like everyone in Rebel Wolf would subscribe to my definition of what the sticky stuff is, but my personal take is that we think of gamers as a mature audience, and we don't want to dumb down. We don't want to patronize the player, and we don't want to make games which are, I don't know, like sliced bread that's soft to chew, and you don't have to really think about it. We want something that engages. I think there's still a temptation, both with gamers and with video game developers, to treat video games as this younger brother, younger medium, and so to apply a different scale, different expectations. So I don't want that in my own kind of professional experience and life. I want to create art. And video games is my medium. So first, I would say it's that ambition, and the belief that video games have matured and become a medium in which challenging, demanding stories can be told. So that's one thing. And then B, I would say, is refusing to take shortcuts, because it would be super easy to take one quest template where the quest giver tells you, bring me 10 boar skins, and then replace that with 5, I don't know, duck's beaks or bushels of gooseberries, and just populate the world with that, and done. You have your open world. But that would be boring. So we really try to handcraft as much as possible, iterate until we are happy with the quality of it. So I would say that's another element of it. And I think thirdly, reach from many sources of inspiration. And I think that's something that is very evident in our team, is that we have people who are deeply, obsessively passionate about games, but they're also passionate about other things. History, art, movies, literature. And so we seek inspiration in many different sources. And I think that's what gives the games that we work on this richness. And I think that's something that's very important to us now, is that we try to make the game just infused with meaning and with passion.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, because I mean, we're getting, I know, a bit off topic here in terms of talking about Blood of Dawnwalker, but I mean, I think writing in video games is I think a very challenging thing as a consumer, as a consumer, because I feel like we see so many advancements in terms of technical advancements and new gameplay models and whatever else, but it really, to me, it does feel as though a lot of the writing that we get in video games isn't moving forward. Like it's not advancing at the same pace. And to me, it feels like the number one thing that holds this industry back from having a more mature standing as an art form, particularly on the AAA side, because I think you get consistently really great, interesting writing on the indie side, but on the AAA side, it just seems so much rarer. And I wonder if you had any thoughts in that, things that, or do you agree with that kind of assessment? Or you're like,
oh
no,
yeah,
actually, you do?
Okay, I'll be sharing my thoughts, and Mateusz might suddenly become very active and start waving, and if we were in the same room, he'd start kicking me under the table, but here goes. Yes, so first of all, writing for video games is challenging. And I could talk for hours trying to summarize why that is. But like one of the reasons why that is that it's a new medium, and we don't have that much to lean on in terms of like shared experience as video game writers. We have the experience of other writers, of novelists and movie writers, but it's not always transferable. And just to give you one example, like I worked on some movies. I worked with movie writers. They're obsessed about the act structure because movies are linear. So like, and they have it down in like with mathematical precision. So they're like, by minute 7, this has to happen. And then end of act 1, this has to happen here. And then, the tension falls and blah, blah, blah. Or like the hero has to fall before he or she rises to the top. We can't do that in open world RPG, open world games. If you relinquish your control and give it over to the player, you don't have any say over how they direct their experience. And players, and myself included, tend to be shitty directors because, like, instead of like following through the story, we gallivant off to pick up herbs, or I check every barrel. Like I play RPG games, I will check every barrel. I don't know why, but so obviously like the tension falls. So that's one reason. But the other reason is that making AAA games is so very risky and complicated. And so it is your incentive to minimize your risks. And so you want to play it safe from a business perspective. But that's not necessarily encouraging or enriching to the creatives, because if you're told, don't shake the boat, don't do anything crazy, just do what the other guys did because they sold 10 million copies. So you do exactly the same thing, and you do it on time. And that's one of the reasons why Conrad and I and the other wonderful people that we established this company with, why we found the promise of having a company of our own so promising and exciting is because we knew we'd be the business people making decisions. We are the co-owners of the company, and we want to take risks, wisely and with prudence and having prepared. But we want to take risks. We want to do things differently. And then the other reason why writing for video games is so challenging and often proves problematic is that you have to. It's a little known fact which I like you mentioning. Video game writers have to finish their work way ahead of everyone else. Usually between 9 and 12 months ahead of the rest of the team. Because we have to send the text off to editors and then to recording studios, and then the recordings have to happen, and then the recordings have to be sent back to us, and then we have to listen, process them, and then we have to do further recording sessions because always there's something wrong with one of the actors or one of the quests and so on. So we often write for games that aren't finished. We don't see the finished game when we finish writing the dialogues. And so it just requires so much imagination and really good communication to make sure that everyone's on the same page, that us, the writers, we understand what the game is headed and where it will be eventually in a year's time. We can look at a bit of a game, like we can look at these, placeholder assets and imagine, like, will this be the horror quest we wanted it to be, or will this be the uplifting humorous quest we wanted it to be? now that we are staring at a screen and everything seems janky. And so I think what plays to our advantage and what I hope will translate into an amazing experience for people who will eventually play this game is that we have all worked on games together before. So like we have gone through this, we understand what can go wrong, what is challenging, and I think we are able to identify these pitfalls ahead of time. I'm not saying that our game will be amazing on the day of the premiere, but I think we are uniquely qualified to try to push the envelope in terms of storytelling, and that's something that excites me the most.
So storytelling is the thing that you are clearly like, that's the thing that the team is most passionate about, want players to take away. Creatively, what's your biggest fear with this project, with the game?
My biggest fear with this project? That's a good one. My biggest fear creatively.
Damn, we got him.
Yeah, because I'm just so utterly confident in this. So I'm just looking for something I'm not supremely confident in. I would say, frankly, that my biggest concern is players' patience, because I think sometimes I play a game and I won't name names, but sometimes I feel a game and I feel like the game is almost desperate to hold my attention. It's just constantly lobbing new things at me. And hey, have you started collecting these collectibles? Or have you? This is a new quest line, and if you do these 5 things, you will get these amazing glowing pants, and then if you do these 2 things, you will get this amazing pair of glasses, and just everything is flashing. And I feel like, I babysat for my sister once, and I was stuck with her 2-year-old, and I was terrified because I didn't know back then how to deal with kids. I was, shaking this and pointing to this storybook. And I feel like games are like that a lot these days. They're like so desperate to hold our attention.
Sure.
And we don't want that pressure to negatively affect our game and our storytelling ambitions. We want certain elements of the story to unfurl with a slightly more deliberate pacing. We want you to sink into this world, and we just hope that you'll be patient with us as we are taking a little bit of time.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. Jakub, thank you so much. Gameplay reveal coming this summer. Very excited to see more.
Yes, I'm absolutely very confident, but very excited too.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for a good chat. Thanks, guys.
All right, we're coming back with another user question from the Substack. This is from October, who asks, when was the last time you felt really inspired by a video game? It could be from the game's music, the art style, the writing, the characters, etc. And did it spark something in you that caused you to do something in real life? It's a good question. Damn.
I agree.
I wonder if this was purely because of the game, or if it was a kind of mashup of a bunch of things I was consuming at the time. But that game on Apple Arcade where you basically kind of cross-stitching and filling in Ralph's smiling.
No, I don't know this. I
think it's called Stitch, I think.
Okay.
And it's basically a puzzle game where you fill in pieces of fabric and you're kind of filling in a design through stitching. That has kind of got me really into crocheting again. Because
that's cool.
Yeah, so I used to do it quite a bit. And I mean, to Ralph's point earlier about something you did when you were younger and you've kind of fallen back into, I got I don't know, and I'm also getting a lot of TikToks and a lot of Instagram reels about, tailoring your own clothes. Because I am a weird shape. I always joke that I have the body type of like a Solarian from Mass Effect. Because I have a really long torso. And they don't make clothes to fit anymore. Like, it's, not to sound old woman yells at cloud, but I find it really difficult to find things that fit nicely and that make my body look the way I want it. And so I got my sewing machine and I'm going to be tailoring stuff. And I decided to make a make a bloody sweater. And maybe next week I'll have an update.
That's cool.
That's sick.
But
like
that's my kind of log off and do something. And I think it was because, I was playing that game and I remembered how nice it is to just construct something and have it at the end of the day. I've been doing a lot of cross stitch too. And then I wonder why my repetitive strain injury is so bad at the moment. Like it is. I've had to stop doing crochet for like a week. But,
really?
yeah. Oh no. I was waking up in the middle of the night and I had the shooting pains all down my arm.
Whoa.
Damn.
Yeah. And my tension is good. My tension, I am not like, all scrunched up like a shrimp or something. I have really good tension. I make sure to do my posture. I roll my shoulders back, and then even then I would,
Damn.
a lot of stitches.
Okay.
That's mine.
That's very cool though. You're actually making stuff. That's rad.
I mean, if it's good is the question, but
Doesn't matter. Make stuff,
It's
even
the
if it's
person.
bad. You know what I mean? Who cares?
I love that.
My answer to this is sort of cheating. That I feel like I'm, especially now that I'm working on a few indie games, constantly inspired by other games. It is a constant. I would actually say even working in AAA, this is like almost a disease that happens in AAA game dev. It's like notorious, where someone will play something and then they'll come into the office and be like, everybody listen, we're going to do this instead. And like Elden Ring, I think was like one of the worst things to happen to the entire AAA industry, where everyone for a while was like, we're going to do that. And it's like, we can't do that. Hold your horses. But it's like game devs, I think, are notorious for being too inspired by other games. It definitely happens across the board. But in the indie space, it's a lot of just like even if we're faced with sort of a design problem, sometimes I will go, well, what's like the other game equivalent of this? And then you go, oh, it's that mechanic. And then you apply it to your own game. So it's constantly inspired by other video games in order to create solutions, which I think is kind of how the games industry goes around, really. It's just people inspiring each other nonstop, kind of.
I did a preview for Skate Story recently.
You started
It was
skating?
end of last year. Say again?
You started skating?
No.
Oh.
Didn't
Oh,
inspire
that'd be
me to
awesome.
do
He
anything
said,
other
no,
than...
that's for povos. I only play tennis, love.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm too rich for that. No. It did inspire me to listen to Blood Cultures, which is the band that's like providing all the music for that. It's fantastic music. But also, I legitimately did find it very inspiring because it is this one dude who's just working on a game, and he's made some little like cube-based game on GameCube before this, and he's like, no, I just want to bite off way more than I can chew, and I'm going to do this thing. And he's made it all on his own, and it looks incredible. I chatted with him, and I don't know, he just had a vibe about him where you just a really fascinating dude that made you go like, wow, there's obviously just so much creativity in this person, and it's just bursting. He's just bursting with creativity. And that's how he got this band, like Blood Cultures, agreed to write an album of music for him, even though he didn't even have a publisher for his game and he had no proper credentials behind him. He somehow got them to agree to do that. And you can't do that unless you've got some serious chutzpah. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I did find that very inspiring, talking to him, seeing his work. I think it was really cool. It is always inspiring to like come close to indie devs, like speak to them about how they've done what they've done, because like making a game is an extraordinary undertaking, and doing it all on your own, man, is unfathomable. So yeah,
Very cool.
That was good. Yeah. October, thank you very much for your question. Now let's move on to what we've been playing. I'm looking at the notes here. We got a bunch of stuff we've been playing. Lucy, you got to preview Split Fiction, the game from the Hazelight people.
So jealous.
It Takes Two people. Please tell me, like, what did you see specifically?
So it was about 3 hours of hands-on with Split Fiction.
Wow.
And they let us play from the very beginning, but what they did was they would do specific gameplay segments, and then there would be a pop-up appearing saying, hey, okay, this section, we're going to move you forward to experience some more of the gameplay offerings, because if you played It Takes Two, you will know that they just throw so many different types of gameplay at the wall. And I was so surprised when I played It Takes Two that it was as long as it was, but also that it was as varied as it
Polished, dude. Crazy.
And gonna tell you all that Split Fiction, exactly the same. They just have so much in there. No idea. And they'll just have like we spoke to Joseph Fares too, and he said, oh yeah, sometimes, we'll just have a big dragon that it took 9 months to build, to make. We'll put it in the game for one sequence and you'll never see it again. And I was like, damn.
That's awesome.
All right.
That's crazy.
But it's obviously it's the split screen co-op formula from It Takes Two. Yeah, you have to, is it a full price game? Either way, you just have to buy one copy of it. There's a friend pass to give it to someone to play it with, because you have to play with someone and you have to communicate. Oh my God, this is not a game where they'll have a button that gives you a countdown. You have to be communicating. And I was playing with Tam, and it's, I think, a little harder than It Takes Two. There was some segments.
Okay.
There was a pinball section in particular. You'll probably see this pinball section mentioned in a bunch of the previews that was a little bit tougher. But I will say I had such a good time with it. At one point during the preview, I took my a headphone off, and people were just yelling. They were laughing. There were big cheers at some points where people finished, big sections and sequences.
That's what I want to hear.
And so It Takes Two was obviously the story of these parents getting divorced. Split fiction is these two people, they go to a book publisher and they think they are getting their book signed. They think they're getting their works published. And it turns out that they're actually being fed into the machine, and this corporation is extracting their ideas. So I guess some kind of allegory for kind of AI and creatives there and how they're being treated. But these two characters, Mio and Zoe, one has written a bunch of sci-fi, that's Mio, and Zoe felt very seen with Zoe. She was like this very polite English girl who loves fantasy. Like, that's me. And they get merged together. And so the game will just go from being, this typical fantasy village, and there's loads of trolls in it, and then you're on a Tron light cycle type thing, and you're shooting down Blade Runner type cars with lasers, and then you'll be in like Contra style suits, and like the creativity is kind of off the charts. And we only saw the very beginning, stuff from the opening of the game in the first 3 hours, and it was. I'm very excited. I was excited about it before, even more so now.
How do they do with focusing completely on like humanoid characters now? Because I remember the couple of scenes with like humans with It Takes Two, they were a little stilted, and then obviously A Way Out is a little older. So how are they handling like those like human characters?
You're not always a human. They have these little, obviously because it is in the realms of fiction, sometimes you will not be human. But in terms of, I don't think it was very stilted at all. I will say, I think controls wise, maybe a little less precise than I would have liked. I would have kind of liked a little bit more weight to each of the characters, but you are just, running and jumping around these sci-fi worlds and I don't know, this fantasy lands. They have a thing called like these little side stories now. And so in one of them, Tam and I got turned into pigs, and he would get around by farting, and I would get around because I would turn into a spring and sort of jump over things. And so the absurdist humor is definitely still there. There's an Akira reference that we saw. There was music in there that Vangelis would be proud of in the sci-fi sections. They were also poking fun at the genres, like very lovingly. And so with everything that they managed to do with It Takes Two, I'm really intrigued to see the rest of this one.
Cool.
That is good.
I'm so excited.
Glad to hear it. Yeah.
It Takes Two was like my game of the year back when it released.
Yeah,
great
same.
game.
It was incredible. And so, just to hear that they're going to be like, we're going to do more of that, because that template is not just like doing the same thing over again. That template is, here's a whole bunch of new ideas. You know what I mean? Like just shit you've never seen or experienced before. And I love that they're so focused on co-op. That is just a great goal for them to adhere to, because again, so few games do that, in that way. It's like, yeah, sure, you can play co-op Diablo, but no, we're talking about something very different. And it's hard to make games like that. Commercially, it's more risky because people are like, well, I don't have anyone to play with,
It's still EA Originals, right?
Yes.
I don't know if it's under the Originals label. Is it
it's
Originals
under
label
EA.
or is it just EA?
Joseph was saying that, because I said to him, you're in quite an enviable position that you are able to throw this much at a game, and take all these risks and try all these different things. And he said EA they don't do shit. They don't interfere with us. And I was like,
I mean, that's
insane. Like a publisher.
Well, I think very positive things about the EA Originals program, because they also let people keep their IP. Like, I don't know if any of this has changed,
but they haven't.
They basically just pay for marketing, but they also don't push it as hard as I think some of the studios might like.
Yeah, I mean, Immortals of Avium, they pushed.
I think
pretty
I don't know.
hard. I mean,
I don't know what the deal
Tales
is
of
with that one
Kinzera as well.
Yeah, see, I don't feel like that was very marketed.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think comparatively, and especially, what was the Joe May one? Sea of Solitude. I don't think they pushed very hard.
And Thea was as well, right?
Yeah, and
the Yarn Guy game.
Yanni.
Yeah, Unravel.
Yeah, so I think it kind of maybe it just goes by project, but like, did anyone? I mean, It Takes Two is an incredible game. Did anyone think it was a 20 million seller?
To be perfectly honest, yes. I mean, like, in the sense that, like, it's that kind of game where if you have a PlayStation and you have young kids or whatever, you just buy that game. And there's not enough games like that.
Traumatize the kids with the elephant bear?
With the elephant.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I hope he has more fucked up shit like that in Split Fiction.
No, please, no.
I didn't see anything truly fucked up, but, I didn't finish it, so remains to be seen.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool. I'll jump in next because I know, Ralph, you spent some time with it. We talked about it a little bit last week. Civ 7. Have your thoughts updated at all on that?
Have you seen? Have you left your room?
No, I only played that one weekend for 23 hours. I haven't touched it since then because I had to jump onto
23 hours in one weekend.
Yeah.
Look,
Damn.
we don't like
What
to
about
revisit
tennis?
that, okay? Tennis is a weekday thing. Civilization was a weekend thing, okay? My views on it did not evolve because back then I said I like this, however, because it's still Civ at its core, and Civ is this very dangerously addictive formula. But do I like all of the things that it was doing in Civ 7? Not necessarily. I think the main thing, if anyone's not aware, is that, like, you move between ages. There's 3 ages, and when you move from one to the next, you have to switch civilizations. So you start out as Roman, but you can't be Roman again in the second age of your playthrough. You then need to be, Mesopotamian or British Empire, or that's actually later, whatever. Point is, it's weird in that regard because you do have Benjamin Franklin, in the
leading the Mongol Empire,
leading like Japanese shogunate troops and architecture, and it's just. It's weird, and then all of a sudden he's not that anymore. He's actually now leading the, whoever. Like, it's odd, and it's fun and playful, and it makes it kind of like a roguelike, but it also just feels kind of goofy, and I didn't love that.
You know what?
You
know how it landed for me? It was kind of like it feels like a game mode, like a variant. And
exactly
it's like
what you mean.
With a variant on a game that you like, you have to be in the mood to jump into that different game mode or that alternate variant game mode. So that's why I was like, this is cool. Like, and I was like you, like I immediately got sucked in and binged it. But in the long run, I came away being like, all right, but like now I think I'd rather play Civ 5 or 6. And like a lot of people are going to be like that. Some people are so locked into those, but it was like that difference. Like I still understand why they did it in terms of like pacing and changing it up.
Yes.
Sure. But I don't know, that coupled with like, I really am not loving the UI.
I've seen a lot of that. The criticism I've seen is that it's like iPad UI kind of.
It's weird. It's essentially, it lacks Riz. It's a Rizless UI.
Get out.
Where it doesn't feel like a rich tapestry or there's like one consistent theme throughout it. You have some sections where it's like at a glance info is prioritized. You have some where it's like, what is going on here?
Totally, yeah.
Different color palettes. It's just a lot. And then on the like the icons, some of the icons, especially when you're looking at the main map, do feel kind of iPad-y. And I think, credit to the game. I think some of that stuff is like it you see it and you're like, oh, the UI, because the actual map itself looks really good. I think the units look great. I think the city building, the structure, the tiles, the landscape, all that stuff looks really good here. And I think it's looked the best it's it's been. There's a lot of good things about the game, but then it's like, again, for me, it was like, oh, I got to be in the mood to play this type of Civ, this structure of Civ. So, I mean, I'm glad that they're tweaking the UI. They've already been like upfront about that, but I just think it's a Civ you got to be in the mood for if you play Civ.
I really like the little video you uploaded of Machiavelli. Like the cheeky little Machiavelli.
Oh, how he's just like, hee, I'm Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Io sono Machiavelli. Oh, I got an evil plan, you know? I still like that about Civ. Like, I love the characters and like this. So what they did this time around is they didn't center just around people who ran empires or led armies. They focused on just historically significant people.
Yeah.
Ben Franklin. Like, Ben Franklin is the president of the United States. Harriet Tubman. Yeah. So I like that they shine a light on like different historical characters, because a million times we've been a Caesar or an Augustus.
What British have we? What Brits are we talking about?
Nigel Farage.
Who is the British one?
He's in there. What do you reckon? What do you reckon his bonus stat is? Right?
Is there a move to do Brexit? Oh.
That's right, exactly right.
Do a Brexit.
Do a Brexit.
Yep.
Like, I was thinking like Oliver Cromwell, or like I don't know, someone who, you know.
Is there a British one?
That'd be censored in Ireland.
Yeah. How I find out.
There is. I'm trying to think. There probably is some British. I can't remember off the top of my head who the British leaders might have been.
Churchill.
I didn't see him in the list, so I don't think so.
No, that's not him.
Is there an offline, like, cloud-based multiplayer? All I want to do is to be able to play a really long, several months long game of Civ with people, but not have to be playing at the same time.
I don't know, actually, if that exists or not.
I know people. I don't know. Yeah, I never play multiplayer, so I don't know.
Neither do I.
Bad at my job.
So
Damn.
Catherine the Great, isn't it? Okay.
Sorry?
Catherine the Great?
Okay, sure.
Did you ever watch The Great, by the way? It's a fantastic show. But
The Greatest Showman? Sorry.
God bless you.
How dare you?
God bless you.
Yeah, so that's me on Civ 7. I wish I could be like raving about it. You know, it's good. It's exciting to download and try and play a new Civ and spend $80 fucking on it. The pricing was like insane.
It was.
But yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say on it either. I think I had fun with it because Civ is Civ, but I didn't really like. Its new elements did not jump out at me as being like, oh yeah, this is clearly the future of Civ. This felt like. Let me ask you a question.
How do you feel about Gwendolyn Christie narrating?
She does an okay job.
Did Sean Bean ruin it for you? Because now I can't go back and replay older Civs, and I can't hear.
It's unfair.
Sean Bean, I thought, was so peak.
Anyone to Sean Bean is unfair. It's deeply unfair. So I mean, it's impossible act to follow. So yeah.
All right. Next, I do want to hear from Lucy about South of Midnight. Are you the only one that played that, or
no? Ralph played it. Ralph played it.
Oh,
go to Ralph, because
right.
I've played a lot. I feel like I have the same opinion on it as Ralph.
Yeah, look, so South of Midnight, it's from Compulsion Games, and they had earlier done Contrast and We Happy Few. It is the first game they're making under, when they were owned by Microsoft. It's the first game that they've been working on it for like 6 years or whatever. It's set in the Deep South, like, Southern Gothic kind of setting. It's fucked up and weird, like Southern Gothic Alice in Wonderland is kind of a good way to sum it up. Okay. I really enjoyed it. I
really,
yeah, I did.
Sure what to make of it?
No, I definitely did. I wasn't like I love this is incredible. I enjoyed it though for sure. I think that there's three parts to it. There's platforming, there's combat, and then there's like storytelling vibey stuff. Okay. The storytelling vibe stuff is fantastic. The setting is so beautiful and interesting, and the music is great, and all the characters you meet are super cool.
Did you see that you could have the music with lyrics, and you could have it without? There was an option. There was an option for that in the menu.
That's cool.
Okay, no, I only heard that really song at the back end that had the lyrics. Excuse me, but yeah, so that part of it's great. Then there's like the platforming stuff, which is super basic. There's really nothing to it. And I'm not sure, and I suspect it doesn't get much more sophisticated than that later on. Maybe it does, but just looking at the fundamentals of it, I can't imagine that it becomes much more challenging.
In a good way, that isn't inherently bad. Like if it's something that, like, does it feel good?
the way that I present this is like Psychonauts, okay? Psychonauts is a platformer with a little bit of combat thrown in, but ultimately it's about the storytelling and vibes. It uses its levels to tell stories. It's all about its characters. It's all about that stuff, right? The gameplay is rather incidental to that experience. And I feel like this is that. And then, interestingly enough, I say that, and a lot of people are like, this reminds me of Kena Bridge of Spirits. I'm like, no. Kena Bridge of Spirits had some proper combat, and the boss encounters were fucking hard, and it was like Souls-esque at times. And it was a very competently made and robust action-adventure game that wasn't putting all its weight behind its storytelling. It actually did have some gameplay chops too. I don't think South of Midnight actually has gameplay chops. Like, the combat side of it, it's fine. It's perfectly fine, and it does the job. But there's nothing there that makes me want to do more combat. You know, it just, there's also some awkwardness in your character kit. Doesn't feel like it's fully fleshed out. You know, so the Kena Bridge of Spirits comparison, I think, is not right. And I think people, when they experience this for themselves, will come to that same conclusion. I think Psychonauts is much neater because it's like, why are you playing this game?
That's high praise. Psychonauts rules.
Yeah, but I also don't think it's as good as what Psychonauts is doing. Because I think Psychonauts is incredible. I think it's like one of the best Xbox games ever, you know? And I think this is in that same vein. But who knows? Like, maybe it is, you know? Maybe I've only played one chapter and of what I assume will be like a 10-hour game. I played it for like 2 hours or whatever. So I like this for sure. I'm really looking forward to playing through the rest of it, which is a 10 hours-ish, really nice world and storytelling and music and characters, and just have a nice, pleasant, low-stakes experience. And that's it, you know? And
what is the combat? I'm unclear.
The combat is literally... The combat is there's no enemies. There are no enemies out in the open world. It's just like you go to these arenas, and then all of a sudden, invisible walls pop up around you. Enemies spawn in waves. It's pretty tricky, actually, which is quite weird because the rest of the game is really chill and low stakes. And then all of a sudden, combat starts, and it's kind of hard. And I died a few times. I had a few close calls. Difficulty does not feel well calibrated versus the overall experience. However, there are difficulty options and what have you. But by default, it feels a bit strange. But really, it really is just like enemies swarm around you. You hit them with a basic attack a couple of times. There's a dodge button. You've got a few abilities that like either push enemies away from you or pull them towards you or stun you. And that's it.
So it's like your standard hack and slash with a little bit of flavor.
I think standard is probably too generous a term. I would say it's very bare bones hack and slash, you know? Yeah, I would say that's where I'd put that. You know, it does the job. It's pacing in the overall adventure. I think you'll die a few times because it's trickier than you'd expect. And that, again, serves the pacing because, you know, pads out the game length a little bit if you have to do a few sequences a few times. But again, I don't imagine, unless something substantially changes, I don't imagine people are going to be playing this for the gameplay or really singing its gameplay praises. It's about the other stuff.
Yeah, I was actually surprised at some of the places the story went. Even in that even in that one chapter, I felt quite emotionally affected by it. I was really. I mean, I think another, you know, to the Kena comparisons, I did kind of, you know, get that vibe of you are solving people's pain, you're following this kind of ghostly spirit thing, and you know, you can, I don't know, get to the root of people's pains, kind of like Psychonauts too, obviously, but like I think Kena, and I guess that
Kena ruled. I really haven't thought about that game since now. That game was sick.
I liked it.
Yeah.
And yeah, to Ralph's point, the vibes and everything were so good, the music and just the way that levels were kind of set out, I really enjoyed it. But the story is what leapt out at me the most. It was, just done in a really, I don't want to spoil what happens in it.
Me too, I didn't spoil it
because,
either.
I mean, it's certainly what they're selling it on. Like, I feel like the thing from the trailers that I keep taking away whenever I see this game is the world seems very interesting and unique and full and vibrant. More so than the gameplay for sure. So I get they're probably recognizing that as a strength.
Yeah.
And hinging the game on it. And it's like, I feel like we kind of don't get that many. There was definitely an era where I was playing games like that all the time, where I was like, I'm here for the story, and I don't do that much anymore. Like these are all so big and so RPG.
I think that still exists on the indie side, you know. I think that's pretty
totally
common on the indie side. But not you're right, not from bigger publishers. And that's what makes Psychonauts stand out. I think it's quite unique still to this day, and I think this is following in that same vein.
How did you like the stop motion?
I love it personally. A lot of people really are really against it, and they're like, I just can't handle it. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Obviously, it's a stylistic
played
choice.
It? I think that is something that's easy to be against from afar, but when you play it, you go, oh, cool.
But having played it, I don't think it's actually that different than what you see in the trailers. I think it's the same, and people just for some reason don't like that.
I think it can be hard to look at because like Spider-Man did that too, right? And when you saw it, you're like, totally. But then you play it and it doesn't bother you.
But then there was also Sable. Sable was like, I love Sable. Incredible game.
You were big on that.
I loved it. But that was also the protagonist would move around at a lower frame rate, was animated at a lower frame rate than the rest of the game. And a lot of people found that quite jarring as well. And I can understand how that kind of visual thing catches on the eye the way that like a weird sound catches on the ear. I get it. But me personally, though, it didn't bother me. And I think it's an interesting stylistic choice that I'm like, all right, cool. You want to try some funky things? Go for it. You know, it's all good. But yeah, some people definitely. Did you? You didn't like it?
No, I liked it. I was actually I was surprised that it wasn't as pronounced as I thought it was going to be. I thought they were really going to go, and it would be apparent in all instances of when I was playing. But there's definitely certain moments and certain characters that are more in that stop motion style than. I was also a little bit wary of it because I was afraid it might trigger my motion sickness, but it didn't. You can turn it off if it does. But
are enemies in stop motion in combat?
No. Okay, they're full frame rate. Yeah,
cool.
and they were shooting for 60 FPS. 60 FPS on consoles. That's 1080p at the Series S and 4K on the X and obviously PC your mileage may vary. So yeah,
cool.
But it's looking cool. Don't expect this one to set the world on fire. I would say don't expect. This is not the Game of the Year contender, I would say. That's fine. Not every game needs to be. It's just a cool little game that a studio is making, and I'm glad they're making it, and I enjoyed what I played, and I'm keen to play more of it.
I love a cute little AA.
But also, and can I just say this conversation about like Game Pass game? It's a Game Pass game. It's a Game Pass game. It's like, okay, sure. That is a pejorative sometimes, absolutely, where they're like, you suggest that games are bad and so they have to rely on Game Pass. That's a fact that sometimes that's the case. Sometimes though, that it's a different thing when we talk about small indies getting onto Game Pass, because what that does at that point is it puts that game in front of people who never would have looked at it, who never would have shelled out for it, because that's just not people's buying habits these days. Like they have evolved. And so when I say that this is a perfect game for Game Pass, that's not like brackets derogatory. It's brackets, like complimentary. It's like brackets optimistic about the fact that, people will give this one a go that otherwise wouldn't do that. So yeah, that's one of the upsides for Game Pass that I think is really, really overlooked. And I think having spoken to indie devs in the past, they definitely acknowledge how beneficial Game Pass can be to their business model, for sure.
Alanah, you've been playing Eternal Strands? What is it? I don't even know what this is.
So I haven't played very much. I just started, but I'm very into it. It's like exactly the kind of game that I wanted right now. It's from a bunch of ex-BioWare devs, Mike Laidlaw, who most well known for working on Dragon Age. Still quite different to that though. It is like scratching the kind of like Kingdoms of Amalur itch that I had. Like I loved that game when it came out. It's very unique though, because I don't know if you played the Re-Reckoning, I think they call it, and I was like, oh, Kingdoms of Amalur is not as cool as I remember it being when I tried to replay it. Eternal Strands is like what I remembered that game being, so it's an RPG. It is a series of open worlds. It's very clearly inspired by Shadows of the Colossus, but the tone is very, very different. So it's somewhere in between Dragon Age, Breath of the Wild, Shadow of the Colossus, but a little more indie is how I would describe it. It's not perfect. It does also fit in that cute little AA space for sure, but it's all of the things that it has taken from those other games I love. Like, you can't go wrong with video game where you get to climb giant and attack it while climbing it. Same as Dragon's Dogma 2. That like ended up being like, I don't know if you guys do this, but I have a category for like the best game of the year and then my personal game of the year, and I know they're different. And Dragon's Dogma 2 was my personal game of the year. I'm like, I know what's wrong with it. I had a great time with it. It's fine.
What a great opinion. Could not
Loved
agree
it. And I feel that way about Eternal Strands, where I'm like, this is like right up my alley. It's like, it is Dragon's Dogma-esque in a lot of ways. It does that walk around a corner and you're like, oh my God, what's that? That is also like obviously very popular in the Souls games, but a lot more accessible than Souls. This is just not as hard, basically. There's also some romance elements, which I feel like you don't usually see in games like this, but it makes sense having come from BioWare/Dragon Age team. But I've not delved into any of those yet. I know that they're there, but I haven't actually done any of them. Yeah, it's so far really fun, really enjoying it. I would say if you're looking for that kind of light-hearted RPG is what I want to say. It's not your like Expedition 33 grim, dark, Warhammer-esque everybody's crying type RPG. It's much it's bright, it's Breath of the Wildsy. You can climb everything. It's giving me exactly what I wanted from that. I'm a big fan of like the Dragon's Dogma likes, and it's basically another one of those. And I'm really, really enjoying it.
Does it have a bunch of like loot stuff and stat stuff, or is it more just like the gameplay systems?
There is loot stuff and stat stuff, but I'm not feeling overwhelmed by it at all. If I'm feeling overwhelmed by anything, it's probably map size right now, but I have also only just started, and obviously that's a thing you uncover, and so I'll see how that fares. But yes, there is loot. There do be stats. I imagine you can probably get as deep into it as you like, but I'm still very surface level right now, and I'm not feeling overwhelmed by it at all. It has all the RPG bases covered where all of that kind of stuff is concerned. I'm really enjoying it.
I mean, it's on my list. I feel like when you mentioned Dragon Age, I was like, oh man, they've got me again. But might have to wait.
Did you play Veilguard?
Yeah.
How did you like it?
I was really depressed when I was playing Veilguard, and I think its overly optimistic tone was actually quite good for me at that point. But the more I look back on Veilguard, the more issues I have with it. It's just not a good Dragon
I did not
game.
play it. It didn't appeal to me, and I think that's part of why I felt like Eternal Strands was so exciting when it did come out, was that it like is almost giving me, it's not full Dragon Age, it's not quite as beefy as that. I'm not sure the story has its hooks in me yet in a way that a lot of Dragon Age might. But I feel like it is potentially a good alternative. Again, it's a lot of the same team, Mike Laidlaw, director. So it probably has like very similar
DNA
vibes. Yeah, DNA. Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, Eternal Strands.
Austin reviewed it on the channel, on my channel as well, and he really loved it. He thought it was really solid and really interesting, and it's really cool to see that team, because that team went through a lot because they actually lost their publisher.
Yeah,
because they were private division, right?
They were.
Yeah.
Yep. So they had to get that out the door, and to see it get out the door, and then with so little marketing behind it, and then actually get picked up because of its strength on its own merit. You know what I mean?
Totally.
To see it get talked about, and I really hope that it sold well, and more than that. Like I expect that studio will probably find some work either for themselves or in partnership with another studio or something, because they've done such good work here. People are going to want a piece of that. Like people want to support that. So, congrats to the team for pulling that off.
Should we dive into Avowed?
I have many questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting that Lucy, you were saying things in Dragon Age, the Veilguard didn't grab you.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I'm feeling with Avowed, in terms of characters and story.
Yeah.
From the time I've spent with it, I've spent quite a bit of time with it. I enjoy the gameplay.
Yes.
For me it's
too.
smooth as hell, man. You
So
run
good.
around, you stab, you blast, you zap. Movement speed is really fast. The hit
Parkour.
feedback, everything is so responsive.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like a perfect answer to how, an old Bethesda game where you would slash left and right, slashing at a creature in front of you until it dies. This is like the perfect next step of that in terms of how the hits feel, how they respond, how your character responds. And how it just lets you kind of go hog wild and have fun and experiment, like mixing and matching, and like I'm holding like a grimoire and casting spells and I'm shooting a gun with my other hand. Oh, that's cool as fuck, man. We're just like sword and shield, magical spear, a wand, and just like experimenting and having fun. I think that's really good, and especially how they've built out the character progression stuff. The stats and the character abilities, like the skill trees rather, I like. The loot is a little underwhelming.
The loot
in
is
how
lacking.
The stats work. Yeah, loot be lacking.
Get that on a t-shirt.
But it's awful. I like playing it, and the moment to moment, like, going around blasting skeletons and stuff. Very cool. But these types of games, especially like how it just feels a little bit BioWare-y in terms of how you have your party members and you got a wheel where you trigger them to do something and it's like an instant response thing. I like that stuff, but the characters themselves and the journey, I'm not really as vibing with.
Yeah, I agree. I was a lot warmer on it when I first started. I think of about 7 to 10 hours. I think it starts off really well. It was around the time I got the second companion, is that Marius? Where
that dude sucks.
I just didn't like him, and I think
he's a bummer.
Sucks, man. He's just always whinging. It's like, shut up, man.
You go from Fishman, who clearly fucks.
Well, he's played by
definitely
Garrus Vicarian's voice.
And then you go to this guy. Yeah.
Shit,
this
man.
boring dwarf.
And
he's so boring.
there just
Do
wasn't.
you have to recruit people, or is it a choice that you make?
Nah, you have to. That's another problem with the game.
They didn't feel like their place in my party was earned, and there was a weird ramping up a familiarity that it just felt very unnatural for them to be chatting away, and I was like, hey guys, what are we playing, hey guys, what are we talking about? I have no idea what any of this stuff is. There wasn't.
Anytime you get to ask them like, hey, are you good to stick with me, or like, why are you doing this, they all just kind of answer like, I don't know.
I got nothing else going on.
They don't have a lot of compelling reasons.
Yeah.
The main story, I feel I'm just kind of going through it, but I do think it's a really beautiful and interesting game to explore. I really enjoy walking around the map. I will. Okay, I'm going all the way up here. I'm going to go find this, this cave or whatever. Follow this treasure map that I've been given, and along the way, I will always find an interesting cave that has a puzzle in it, and there's environmental puzzles. Either you're using electricity to open doors, or you're freezing water to use it as a platform, or you're exploding through walls. There's kind of this interesting thing that's always compelling me and keeping me going when it comes to exploration. But to Jake's point about the loot is never really interesting. It is always just some money and some upgrade materials, but never really enough.
When you say that, what are you looking for loot? So like Eternal Strands, I didn't even mention this. Most of the loot you get is like crafting materials that's how the upgrade system works. Like when you say you're like you're not satisfied by loot in a game, what do you consider to be satisfying loot?
Like a better weapon.
You specifically want like upgrades.
Something that is a meaningful upgrade for my weapon and armor.
They come few and far between.
They are very few and far between. And like right now, I just have I have a common wand, and I'm just upgrading it. The one.
Are you guys fine? I'm not sure how far you're getting. And maybe Jake, because you're a bit further. Are you in this a position where like you're fighting enemies one tier above you all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fuck my life. Okay, so
I'm surprised how aggressively the game hits you with that.
Enough.
Your armor's not good enough. It's like, dude, I'm working on it.
Hit him with a different weapon. They keep calling it out, and I'm like, dude,
I can't.
I'm trying my best. I've done a lot of side quests. Leave me
there
alone.
There is something wrong with the economy of this game. Like it doesn't work. I'm now about to finish it, and I'm like consistently fighting.
You're
enemies
still
that
hitting
are one tier above me. The whole game I've been in that basket, and I've been doing side quests, but like obviously I'm not doing all the side quests, and it really feels like unless you do all the side quests, you are not going to get the materials you need to be able to upgrade your gear, and you can't just find weapons and items and armor enough to be able to stay on gear curve. And so you are constantly, and just so you know, when you're not fighting, when you don't have the right gear, you have an immediate 35% less damage dealt and more damage taken as a result of that. So the game does not feel correct when you are doing that. It feels like the enemies are too spongy. It feels like combat is too punishing. Now, in a way, that kind of works because it makes combat more demanding. And I've actually found that I have enjoyed it for the challenge, but it doesn't feel right, which I know is like a contradictory thing to say.
I get
where
what
it's
you mean.
just like, it's just, I enjoy that it's challenging. I enjoy that it's asking me to do things for sure. But at the same time, I'm simultaneously pissed off that the reason that it's hard is purely because everything is now more spongy. And I constantly have my companions yelling at me, telling me my gear is too low level. I'm like, I fucking know it's too low level, man. I know that, okay?
They're like, you suck, by the way, you suck.
Exactly.
I don't know why I'm here. I'd leave if I could.
So,
sorry to ask a really lazy question, but how Skyrim-y is it?
not Skyrim-y.
Interesting.
I think this is like a really crucial point in this conversation because like Skyrim and Bethesda games fundamentally are about like reactive worlds, right? Where, you know, if you steal the thing in front of the person without putting a bucket on their head, they will get pissed off.
You can't steal here.
Yeah, I tried.
You can't. There's no such thing as theft here because you just steal whatever you like from anyone's shop and they don't give a shit. Like they're just
The Living
you just
Lands
walk
are a lawless place.
Absolutely. And I remember I was seeing like there was like a crime scene in one of the first city, and there was like a corpse and, you know, on the floor, and there were two people looking down on it. And there was, you know, they're like trying to figure out what's going on, and there was like a dagger next to it and a sword or something. And I just walked up and picked up the dagger and sword. And the guy's like, cool. And the guy's like, hey, this is a crime scene. But he didn't do anything. He didn't move. He didn't stop me.
There's no threat of being jailed?
No.
Nothing like that.
There are factions that you piss off at certain points where if like you go in certain parts of a city, they'll like attack you on sight. But it's not
really. I haven't encountered that.
Oh, I killed a whole gang.
Yeah, I fought
that first city?
early on, and now anytime I go into like the poor people section, all these pirates want to kill me.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I think Bethesda games are fundamentally very reactive in their worlds. You know, with the way that like moment to moment gameplay. It's not like that here. You know, it's not like that at all. It's a very static kind of world.
So what are you doing in the world most of the time?
Just walking around and talking to people.
And running and jumping and slashing.
Okay.
Yeah, you are like going out into the, and I actually really,
There are bounties.
yeah, because there are bounties to do. Yeah, you go on hunts and stuff. And like personally, I don't dislike this game. But I don't like it either. I think the best parts of it are its exploration and combat.
Yeah.
Which is not really what I was hoping for from an Obsidian game. Like I wanted an RPG that really just gave me great connection to characters, gave me interesting choices to make, and gave me a world that I felt was actually responding to those choices. Now, to be clear, there are decisions to make here, and there are consequences to those choices, but they feel like very surface level. It almost feels like I think because the writing overall struggles to sort of pull you in. The writing is there's so much exposition dump going on,
dude.
Because the lore of Dreadfall of Pillars of Eternity, that's where it's all set. There's so much lore, and this game is desperate to impart that to you relentlessly, to the point where
it loves
the broader dialogue can't breathe. You know, you don't have the connection to the characters that you need. You don't.
The guy dropping in the words in the other language.
Oh, that fucking Marius guy with all his fucking shut up, man, all the time.
But to give it credit, I think it does the Final Fantasy 16 thing of at any point in the conversation, if a word is highlighted, you can like look at it, the in-game lore stuff. So I do give it props for that
as well, right?
Yeah.
So from the outside, it sounds like you guys don't like this game outside of the combat
and the exploration.
Exploration's
I think the exploration is actually great. It's fun. They're big, beautiful worlds to explore. They're full of secrets. But I think
some good side quests too.
Do you think so? I've struggled to find good side quests.
I found a couple that I found like I like the structure and like it felt like it gave me a little bit of like my own area to do a side quest thing.
Yeah, there's some funny writing in there. I mean, one of the first treasure maps that you find is my husband bought this piece of armor to increase his virility, and it was great for a week, and then he died. Like, you know, this is like fun.
What is the
games like
tone?
that.
If we're talking like, is it like between, I don't know, Fable and
It's like
Morrowind?
it's written with a smirk. You know, there's a lot of smirk.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like the did that just happen dialogue that your companions will a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the thing with so I was very I found it very daunting coming in. I played Pillars of Eternity 2. I did enjoy what I played of it. But I still felt coming into this, I was very like, oh boy, that's like a big old nerd world that I don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
And it's like, on the one hand, it's kind of easy to get into here. Like I kind of like, I got a sense of like what I'm doing and what my mission is. But on the other hand, it's like what you said, Ralph. It's like the game can't get out of its own way because it loves the lore and it wants to tell you so much lore. And the amount of people I got stuck it's okay. I don't want to say that I skip some dialogue because I'm like, I don't want to hear this. Like I hate admitting that, but there's a lot where this, I'm like, it's very wordy.
I wonder why
and
they
wordy
did that.
to a
It's such an
detriment.
interesting choice.
I think the problem, definitely the way that manifests most is that every character you meet is not a character with a personality per se.
Yeah.
They're a new expository tool that it teaches you about some new aspect of the world, some new faction or some new whatever. Like it's just, when I think of characters that I've met, they serve a utility function rather than a truly narrative function.
So interesting. Like that's not usually how you craft characters in AAA. Usually you start with who they are as a person. I wonder if there is a reason for that. Like maybe the end of the game is really relevant to some of this lore, because that's a specific direction.
Well, my suspicion is, as I said, you've got two games, Pillars of Eternity games. Their scripts are hundreds of thousands of pages long each.
Yeah.
Obsidian have worked to build this world, and they want to show it off, and I get that. And I when I did my preview, I was like, it's actually really cool that there's this world that you can start learning about, and there's something to tap into. But there is a balance that I just completely lost here, you know. And I think Kai, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but you haven't met the other companions later on. But like, Jake, you've met, and whatever. Kai is like, I think he's a different companion to the others. I actually think he's pretty good. I think
he's the strongest.
He's got a little backstory. He's working.
He's
on
got some
himself.
backstory, but he's not laid it on too thick. He's just feels well done. And then the other three companions, you're like, you all suck. Like, just no, this doesn't work. It just, the writing feels ham-fisted and awkward and doesn't work. You know, I just feel like that about so much of the game, where there's an inconsistency to the writing, where sometimes it really lands and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And other times you're like, no. The main storyline as well, it's so bad. You've got a voice in your head that's constantly talking to you, but it's just saying inane drivel the whole time.
And it goes on.
It goes on
You
and
see
on.
it in the beginning so often that I was I was like, you could just go away for a couple hours and then come back at a pivotal moment. I don't have to.
Is it so bad? Like, I'm like almost like, am I like not, like, is it a matter of mood? I don't think it is, but it's like every time I would rest at the camp early in the game,
every time
I would be then hit with this voice in your head cutscene. It's kind of like the mind flayer thing from Baldur's Gate, but
bad
times 11 and not as thrilling.
Nowhere near as good. And also clearly, and I haven't reached the end of this game, but clearly this thing that's in your head is not to be trusted. Yeah. But like the dialogue also doesn't let you truly explore that. Like again, with the mind flayer, you really could make some decisions that, you know, that position your dialogue and options with the mind flayer that you're like, no, I'm not about you. Fuck off.
Could also
and there are
shag it.
some of you also good shag. There are some decisions like that in Avowed where there's this voice in your head offers you some boons and you can reject them, whatever. But it still feels like every new conversation you have with them is reset to 0, where you can just choose to go along and choose to trust them and choose to be affectionate toward them, even if you've put in dozens of conversations before that where you're telling this voice to go fuck itself.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a good point. Yeah,
it doesn't feel right. It just feels. But I think a lot of the game's writing is similarly like that, where it. You know, I think with companions, like you can say mean things to your companions, but they'll never leave you. They'll never do anything about it. You know,
They
so
won't remember that. Like,
they won't
quote, unquote.
remember that the next time you interact with them. And I think that's kind
It's
of
like
my
RPG
biggest...
light in a way, because like I don't remember that being a thing in the Outer Worlds, but I also played it ages ago. So
No, the Outer Worlds
same.
definitely had, you could piss off companions for sure,
Right?
and they will not go. Yep, absolutely. And I think it's going to be there are like two interesting companion pieces for this, which is like Veilguard and Outer Worlds. Okay, Outer Worlds copped a lot of shit for being like really small and stripped back and
similar
not deep
RPG
enough
light
and
kind of thing. Yeah.
similar RPG light thing. But I quite enjoyed that game for its like quite cheeky writing. You know, like I actually really enjoyed the characters that I was meeting, the scenarios I was going through.
I also didn't feel like the characters in that game, again, that I remember, were exposition dumps.
Correct. Because there wasn't all this lore that they needed to try and
felt like they
push
wanted
out.
to.
You know?
Maybe
So they
they're
were just
like, this is so valuable. Let's focus on sharing it all the time. And that was like a specific direction they went in. It's just a really interesting choice to me.
Totally. So I think that's fine. So I think, this works much better as a playable video game with scale and explorable areas and combat and all that's
Dense
actually
worlds.
really good. Yeah, but on the character side and the plot side, it's significantly weaker. And I think in terms of real reactive choice that feels good and it feels like the world is responding to that, I think Outer Worlds was much better than this is. But I think the other companion pieces like Veilguard, and I think many of the same criticisms you could level at Veilguard, you could level here, which is that like this is ultimately, I think, an action game with some light RPG dribbled over the top of it. Yeah. And for that, it feels very disappointing because you don't want that from Obsidian. You want them to go deep on the RPG stuff. You want them to, come up with some shit we haven't seen before. Like Avowed feels like a game you've played before. It feels just like content. It really does feel like content. It feels
Oof.
Yeah, woof.
I don't, and I'm again, do I not recommend this? No, I'm just like, there are some pros to this that I've enjoyed for sure. I definitely have, again, speaking comparatively, I enjoyed this much more than Veilguard. I do think that its combat and world exploration stuff worked much better for me. But overall, I still walk away from them feeling disappointed that they're such shallow RPG experiences. And contrasting that to something like Kingdom Come, which I'm also currently playing through right now, and I'm 60 hours deep in that or whatever, that is a fucking remarkable video game, man. That is such a good video game. I can't get over how good that video game is sometimes, right? It's so good. And it's so hard and dense. So hard's not the right word, but it's just dense and demanding, and it really asks you to just commit to it.
How do you feel about Stalker
to that
in this?
Well, I think Stalker, I had a different experience because I played it pre-patch and it was so buggy. You know what I mean? But those elements that were working with Stalker for me, I was resonating with. I'm into games, and I guess a broad thesis here is that like I think these studios are scared to make truly demanding games because they feel like they need to tap into broader audiences. Well, it's actually much more risky to make a kind of high-level game that doesn't really commit to anything. Like,
give me Pentiment, man.
Making
Go weird.
Oh yeah,
100%. Making Veilguard and Avowed is more risky than it is making Pentiment or Kingdom Come. Like that's the truth, And I think it's just this kind of generic light RPG thing doesn't win you more players because it's got broad-based appeal. It loses you players because you lose the people who are actually looking for good, strong, robust RPG experiences.
Can you give me a, like, if you like these two games, you'll love Avowed. Like, who's the audience that you think will really gravitate towards this? Because
Pillars of Eternity, maybe. If you're looking for an action-flavored Pillars of Eternity,
it could be that's the market they're trying to get. It could be, because that was PoE2 was so successful.
I can't imagine that anyone who was really into a CRPG is.
I agree.
Into this.
They're so different, but
yeah, that's a good point.
I feel like if you
I mean, I don't know. You know what? I actually, funnily enough, this reminded me heaps of Immortals of Avium, actually. And if you liked Immortals of Avium, you might like this because the combat is so similar. It's actually, I think, much better than Immortals of Avium as well. Like, I think the combat in this, like the spell slinging and open world exploration is really solid.
Yeah.
So if you like that, yes, but that's hardly a flattering comparison for many people, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this is kind of second monitor experience. This is like second monitor viewing kind of video game, right? It's, if you want to play a chill game where you also have a podcast on and you're focusing on exploring the world and ticking off, I'd say who might like this.
I'd say play Eternal Strands.
Like a Ubisoft kind of thing, where it's like you've got a big world to explore and things you can tick off, and you're just kind of going through the grind. It's got that quality to it, I would say.
Like
That's its most
Avatar
appealing
enjoys.
Yeah, that's actually probably a good comparison given the sort of visual style and whatever else. Yeah.
In the world and exploring, like there were parts of this world where I did go, whoa.
Absolutely.
That's cool. Wow,
It's
look at that
beautiful.
thing. It is.
Totally.
The color
So
palette,
colourful.
the detail. Oh, I'm playing on Xbox Series X. It's a little like
really?
Playing on PC, so it's
PC, it runs beautifully.
beautiful.
Can recommend.
Can I just say I really enjoy that loot has a noise, because otherwise I would be
Oh, yeah,
hear
sure.
it. Yeah.
I'd be wandering around and like looking for things, but every so often you just hear like a and you go
Yeah,
find
no,
it, and then
sure,
when
yeah.
it's done, you know you've got it. So that's a nice little thing that I do actually.
That's cool. It's
I
like a great
agree.
accessibility feature.
Yeah.
It really is. And it also does encourage you to explore, because you'll hear a noise and you're like, oh, there's something
Where
up
is it?
there, but I can't get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you need to go around the
Yeah.
cliff line and find a path up, and then it leads you back there. And that's when this game is at its best, funnily enough, when there's
Yes.
a little thing you need to get to and you're not sure how to do it, and you figure out your way to do it, you know? So it's almost a bit sort of like Dragon's Dogma-esque, where you're just kind of roaming around a countryside, getting into some adventures and stumbling upon stuff. It's that. Nowhere near as good as that, don't get me wrong, because I absolutely love Dragon's Dogma for that. It's incredible. So yeah, I think it's a hard pitch, this one. I think it's angling towards like your Bethesda / Skyrim enjoyers, and I don't think they're going to be satisfied. I think
You can play it in third person and it's awkward.
Oh, I haven't,
Yeah,
I
really,
didn't
I haven't even tried. I haven't
It's
even
in the
tried
menu.
that.
Yeah.
It's in the
I
menu.
know.
I just stumbled upon it. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
what?
I didn't
Yeah.
try.
I could play it in
Yeah.
third person, and there's like some animations to it. It's just very tuned for a first person game, so it
Course.
doesn't feel right. But the fact that you
Course.
can do it, but you have to manually enable it on and
Yeah.
off in the menu.
Yeah, that's
Weird.
weird. So I don't
Okay.
know. Like I think this one is gonna struggle a little bit, to be honest with you. I've definitely spoken to some other reviewers who are on a similar page to us, which is like, it's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's also not good. I think my advice to people with this one, I'm nearly completed, right? I nearly completed it. I think if you play through the first zone, you've seen enough at that point. Like you really have seen enough, because you've seen how the combat works. You've explored what I think is the best zone in the game. I think it's the most interesting and fun to get through. You've learned all the systems. You've met the best character in Kai, your companion. I think it's okay to step off at that point. I don't know that there's really much more reason to keep going. But if you do want something that you can just play while you're chilling out and listening to a podcast, yeah, you can do that with this game. But again, that was never what we wanted from Avowed, and I think for that reason it is disappointing.
You can
So,
also play Eternal Strands instead. Not that I've played
Yes.
it. It might be great.
I understand
but
what you mean.
Eternal
No,
Strands
that's
is
it.
actually really good.
But that's a good point, and there are a lot of other games. And the whole time I was playing this, I was thinking to myself, man, I wish I was playing Kingdom Come right now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I miss Kingdom Come so much.
Jesus Christ be praised.
That's right. Getting hungry. No, I was thinking that a lot. So
Bummer.
I know, right? It's not what I expected.
Well,
I
on
wonder
a bright side, I'm
Hmm.
happy that I like the combat feel, and
Yes.
I'm hoping
Yeah,
that
combat is
Obsidian can take
really-
that momentum into their next things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people will be really pleasantly surprised by just how good the combat is in this game. I think a fantastic template that either Obsidian will carry forward or other developers will carry forward, because I think they nailed first-person melee and spell slinging better than any other game before. That combination, right? First-person melee. I think games like Darktide and or even Dying Light and those sorts of games have done it better in terms of their mechanics. But spell slinging, I can't think of a game that's done first-person spell slinging better than this. Not many games try, to be fair, but
What was
they really
spell break? What was that game?
It's that battle royale one.
I never played it. I'm
Sure.
trying to think.
That actually was pretty fun.
Yeah, so
I am
that's
not a
hard thing
huge
to
fan
nail.
of Elder Scrolls first-person combat personally.
No.
Like, I know a lot of people like it, but it's never been my thing. And so that's the thing on this that you're selling me on the most is that it sounds like they've like found a way to improve
They
that
have.
a lot, and I'm very curious to try that.
They really have. But even just like the enemy types, there are healers active later in the game, and if you don't shut them down, the amount of healing they can output is crazy.
Oh, man.
So you
Yeah.
need to like zero them down, and then after that, there's dudes bum rushing you while also rangers like archers are over there. Combat is surprisingly strategic in terms of your positioning and also using your party's abilities, managing your resources.
Good
It
abilities.
is
Yeah.
a surprisingly, don't think of this as just kind of a spammy thing. It's actually quite strategic combat, which again is not easy to do, and I
Yeah,
think
that's
they
awesome.
crushed it. So yeah. Anyway, Avowed.
does
Yes,
it come
that
out?
is bad.
It's out.
Early
like,
access will be out
It's out.
now.
If you're listening,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's. Next, I do want to hear about Wanderstop, Lucy. What is this?
Did you
Is
play
this one of
that?
those Lucy ass games.
Oh man, I didn't know that. I'm jealous. Where did that happen?
I played it at the Game Awards, but also I have it. I will
man.
hook you up.
Yes,
I
please.
don't know what this
Absolutely
is,
hook
but
me
it
up.
looks gorgeous.
So Wanderstop
Tell
is
him who made it.
it's Davey Reardon, who's behind the Stanley Parable. It's also made by was it C418, who does the music for.
Oh, sorry, I do remember
Minecraft.
seeing this. Did this get revealed at the Game Awards, or it was?
It was, I think,
Somewhere
it was at
recently?
Summer Game Fest last year. But
Okay.
Annapurna, who are publishing, Ivy Road is the developer. Annapurna's publishing. They had a hands-on event around TGA, so I played it there, and it is a game about burnout and recovering from it, and allowing yourself to stop and smell the roses once in a while. It's you play as this fighter named Alter. And so I'm just talking about the preview part of it right now because I can't talk about, the rest of the game. He plays a fighter named Alter who has spent years and years pushing herself to become the best there ever was, and she's defeated, and then she's defeated again and again, and she's, she doesn't let that get her down. She's going to go find this Master Winters who's going to train her, and she's going to get back to the top of her game. She just wants to be the best fighter, but she physically can't. She's like running on her way, and first her sword is too heavy, and then she collapses. And when she comes to, she is sat on this bench next to this other character, and and what is his name? Because he is so funny. Hang on. The shop owner. I forgot his name. Oh, it doesn't matter. And the shop owner runs this tea shop, and he basically is trying to gently encourage her to stop and just look after herself. And we here can all massively identify with how bad it is to be burnt out. And I think when I was playing this game, they're teaching you how to make tea and how to grow and cross-pollinate flowers to get different things. And there's a point where you are taught how to make tea, you serve it, and then he just goes, okay, just do whatever you want. And I was like, there is no objective for me. There are no customers. I don't have anything to do. And that was a really kind of powerful moment where a game was not pushing me forward, not forcing me to do something, not leading me by the hand. And the whole game, you have different people who come through, different travelers, and the first customer that comes through doesn't even want a cup of tea. And so the game then presents you with this thing where it's like,
Can't
you
relate.
have an objective, and I want to do it for you, but they don't want it. You
So-
push them away.
Is there combat in this?
No.
Okay. Because I think from the trailer, like, I got the vibe that you're explaining here, but I think I had assumed that there was like a combat part and then it would be like an Animal Crossing part. Am I right that it's Animal Crossing-y?
Ish.
Like watering plants.
Yeah, I mean,
and
watering plants.
crops.
Farmville, if you will. Shout out
Hey,
Farmville.
Shut up.
Farmville.
People still
Hell
play
yeah, the
that.
goat.
I mean,
Big up Farmville.
there could be combat later on. I just haven't got to it, but I would be surprised if there
Yeah.
was. You can just go clean up some leaves, make some tea. You have a field guide, and so you are, coming up with different types of tea to serve to people. There's a really cute thing in the little tea shop where if you want to go clean up the cups, you put it on a little conveyor belt that looks like a dragony thing, and then it goes through the back and it gets dropped off, and it's all nice and clean. And so it has that satisfaction of getting rid of leaves and cleaning cups, and so the satisfaction of kind of maintenance, which I think is such an important thing, especially, we talked earlier about, mental health and everything. But even just the bare minimum of just like making your bed when you're really depressed can be seen as this huge thing that you have done for yourself. Picking up a pile of socks that's on the floor. And I think that's, and I'll have to see as I get further and further into the game, but that's the kind of bricks that I feel like it's laying, where it's okay to be satisfied with just the little things. You don't have to be the be all and end all. You have to just take care of yourself. And the music, obviously, Daniel Rosenfeld, who did the Minecraft music. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that's gamified Burnout.
Yeah.
Before, like, it's not that it's gamifying Burnout itself, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just a really good idea.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying it. That's just the preview part I could talk about right now. But I'm excited to play the whole thing, and it's
Sold.
Now next month.
Nice.
Cool. Something different. Nice. I dig it. Have we covered everything? We talked about a lot of games.
I got one more for you. I'm sorry. I've played so many, but I think I'm the only one here who played Elden Ring Night Rain.
Oh shit.
Of course. Sites. Well, that little one.
That tiny one.
That little indie.
Are you all in the Alanah? I know you are. You guys in the
Yes.
the thing this weekend, the network test? Yeah.
I'm not fucking. No way.
Do you want to?
I don't play Elden Ring. Not anymore. I reviewed it and I retired. I'm like, that's it. It's too hard.
Well,
I'm done.
Elden Ring Night Rain requires you to unlearn what you learned for Elden Ring.
In what
Go
way?
on.
Because it's fast.
We both went, excuse me?
Because
You know
it's
what?
fast. So you are paired up. I was paired up with Andy Cortez and Timur Hussein.
Ugh.
Those
Cool.
gamers, those fake Souls fans.
That's right. Exactly. They don't know shit.
Couple sweaties.
You genuinely, you start each round flying, holding onto a bloody eagle, and you have
That's
a
so
where
cool.
we dropping boys moment.
Dropping in Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings style.
love
Hey,
it.
yo, wait. Why didn't they just
There we go.
why didn't they just take the ring?
Yeah, why don't you can't just take the
Eagles mention. Eagles mention.
And then you kind of have this mad dash because you're scavenging for loot, you're scavenging for skills. Any class can wield any weapon in this. And they there are 8 classes to choose from. Only 4 will be in this network test. We only got to play with 4. And so they each have unique abilities and ultimates, but you can wield any weapon. And even if you just have it in your inventory, you have like 6 inventory slots for weapons, you get the passive buffs for each weapon and they all stack. So it's worth picking stuff up, even if you're not going to use it. They've streamlined leveling. You just basically kill a bunch of guys and you level up. You don't have to individually put points in. It just levels up for you. And then
It's interesting.
you have to try and get leveled up high enough and get good enough stuff. You can upgrade things, but there's no point looking for smithing stones or whatever. You could just find loot. And then you get to the end of that day and there's a boss. And so you defeat the boss, you go to the next day and same thing. But all the while you have the pushing you across different parts of the map. You traverse and it is just so much quicker. You have to make these split-second decisions. You can't just spend your time trying to figure out, where's the best place to go? No, you go, right, we're going to that church because there might be a thing to upgrade my thing. We're going over here. I can see a bunch of dudes. We can take those out really easily. Let's go. There's a site of grace here. We'll go level up. You have to make these decisions super quickly. And it's a really fun
Sounds
way
so
of playing
cool, man.
Elden Ring.
I'm into that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think I will play a little bit of this. And then after that, I'm really just interested in seeing the TikTokification of it and the streaming and that's what I'm keen on. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No.
that's going to be fun.
The whole time I was there, I was saying to any Bandai employee that I could find, I was like, get Bingo Brawlers Season 5 just to do this, because I cannot wait to see what the challenge runners are going to do with it. Because, I've completed Elden Ring. I've got the platinum. Am I good at Elden Ring? No.
Sure.
But there are ways that the game accounts for that to try and, there's a revive mechanic, for example. So if I am the weak link in the squad, it doesn't matter because someone else can come and revive me. And
yeah,
they do
I want
that
to be carried.
Yeah, and they do that by hitting you.
Cool.
Infinitely? Like you.
They hit you.
They hit
That's
you.
cool.
So while you're crawling on the floor, they smack you.
They whack
I
you
love
and you
that.
get up.
Yeah,
That's great.
and I think you can, if you are in the middle of a big boss fight. I think you are out. If you die. Why did I say it like that? If you're out,
I
you
don't know.
die.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
And in the middle of the day, if you die properly, then you go out and you lose a level. But that is actually pretty rough to come back from if you've lost a level.
Is there like a complex lore explanation for they smack you and then you get back up, you're revived?
You
Like,
gotta wait for
Let's
I
Vard.
was
Let's
gonna
ask
say,
Vardy.
is
Yeah.
Varty on the case?
We'll get Vid and Vardy on. Well, that's 3 Australians then. That's too many.
Prepare to get smacked. No, and so I mean, there is a round table hold, and if you are unfamiliar with all the weapons, there is a training area where you could go and you can try everything out. The loot is tiered, and some stuff will be much better than others. So you can't wield everything from the very beginning, though. Some stuff is level gated. So some of it will be like, oh, I can have, don't quote me on this exactly, but like the Sword of Night and Flame or whatever. I can only use that at level 9. But I'm really intrigued by it. I don't think it's going to keep my attention. I don't think this is going to be my new hangout, chill out game.
No, sure.
But for a fun experience with some pals, it was really good. We had a fun time with it. I'm, again,
Could
just
it be
more...
the 2025 Helldivers 2? Or does it not have legs like that?
I don't think they're gonna. They'll support it, but I don't think they're gonna be dropping expansions or a bunch of new content for it. I don't think that's the vibe.
More in a like
just a
super
hangout.
fun fake
Kind of
cinematic game
viral.
with the bros.
Oh,
yeah.
I think
Probably
it
for some
could be.
people, yeah.
I think it could
Yeah.
be.
Is it true they're putting Dark Souls bosses in it?
Yes.
All
That's
right.
cool.
So Tam spoke to the director about that, and I believe he said it was because they needed bosses. So,
I mean, it's like they already
They
made
were
it.
very honest about that
needed
then.
bosses,
That's
yeah,
good.
because you can see like Nameless King and whatever is in
Yeah.
the trailer. But it's interesting. I'm always really intrigued about what this means for the next From Software game, because they are, they like to evolve and kind of try something out and then expand upon it for something else. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens with this one. It was interesting.
I'm keen,
super
man.
excited
As I
to
said,
try
I don't plan to play a lot of it, but I definitely plan to, get in there, play a few, play probably 15 to 20 hours with my buddies, and then move on, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Those sorts of experiences I like. FromSoft experiences, I don't want to have people around me when I'm playing them.
No, I don't want people
I
to
just
see
want to
how
be
I
able to
live.
sit there in gremlin mode and just like slowly, painfully die over and over again to a boss, hating myself, thinking I'm so shit at this game, I suck.
I don't stream
want
them because it just makes it worse.
No,
Correct. The pressure
I
of that.
streamed Dark Souls 1 once, and I was like, I'm having a terrible
you can't
time.
do it.
No,
I don't know how people do it.
I don't know how to do it.
Absolutely. So yeah, but no, I do plan to check it out and put a bit of time into it, and then I think it'll be. But again, after that, for me, it's just the YouTube supercuts and streaming stuff and like
Silly
TikToks
stuff,
and whatever.
yeah.
That's gonna be
Great
fun
for
I reckon.
content.
Absolutely though, that'll be really fun. There'll be some really cool creative people to do some fun shit with it
Like
for sure.
Soul Level 1 Night Rain.
All that
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Man, it was a busy week.
Yeah.
A lot of things we
No
played.
more
Yeah, okay,
games.
February. Like, what are you?
Yeah.
What's this? Great.
I know, right? February every
Jam-packed.
fucking year.
Jam-packed. All right, so now let's jump over to Show and Tell, where we bring something along that we enjoyed or messed with that isn't a video game. Alanah, you go first.
I've been watching through the entire filmmaking works of Park Chan-wook, who you may best know
Cool.
for being the director of Oldboy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Started with JSX, which I adored. It's a Korean movie that's set in a demilitarization zone, right between South Korea and North Korea on the border. It's his first movie. Technically, there are 2 movies that he made that are gone. You can't find them anymore. He scrapped them from his resume. Like, we don't really know what they looks like. One of them's like a weird kind of comedy. I don't even really know what they are. But he was like, I don't count those. So don't worry about those. So this is his first one that he will willingly claim. And the reason that we're doing it is Mike Flanagan, who's a friend, does these movie screening nights, and he claims that he's the best living director. So I was like, wow, high praise. And having now seen even his early movies, so we've watched JSX, and then No Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which is a tough movie to watch, and then
Yeah.
Old Boy and Lady Vengeance.
Yeah.
Great movies, man. The guy makes great films, but JSX really hit me because it does have some like very indie filmmaking things. There are some janky things. There's some weird CGI. There are some. There's a lot of really, I think, bad English dialogue. Everything that's in Korean is great. Everything that's in English is kind of bad. They were forced to speak English even if they couldn't. I think even in some cases like phonetically. So there were people who couldn't actually speak English.
Wow.
Like, yeah, trying to speak English. But it really just got me as a film about friendship. Like it's a weird way to frame it, but that's ultimately what it is. I love the order that it's told in, and I think that he, as a filmmaker, has just really wonderful approach to cinematography. That it's fun to we keep doing these screening series where we started with Terrence Malick, that was the first one, and then we did Sergio Leone. So we're watching people's full catalog from start to finish, and it's so fun, and I highly recommend doing it for any director that you're interested in, because you really see them evolve in real time, especially because we're trying to do like 1 a week or 2 a week. It's such a fun way to watch through movies that you've missed. But yeah, I loved JSX. I absolutely adored it. And No Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, a lot of people love, is like probably his least critically acclaimed film. Very difficult film to watch. It is deeply unpleasant. But I think that Park Chan-wook does this really unique thing with violence, where some really disgusting things happen in his movies. Old Boy, the octopus, obviously a very well-known thing that happened.
Yeah.
Notoriously horrific because the actor is vegan or vegetarian. Whole thing, but he somehow films violence, especially in Mr. Vengeance, where it's not gratuitous, but it's still gross. I don't even really know how he does it. I would love to see like a YouTube video essay on the way that he specifically approaches filming violence, because it never feels egregious. It doesn't feel romanticized, but it's still there and disgusting. But I never feel like I need to look away from it like I would in a million other things. I don't understand how he's done it. It's right there. It's awful. But something about it is so raw that you just accept it for what it is rather than being repulsed. I genuinely don't know. It's magic. But yeah, that's my show and tell. I'm really, really enjoying catching up on this catalog of movies. We've still got a few more to go, but they are very, very, very good. Like I think Mike is probably right about him being potentially the greatest living director. He doesn't really have a bad film in the bunch, especially if Mr. Vengeance is the one I will probably end up liking the least. It's great films.
I was gonna say I'm excited for you because I rewatched The Handmaiden a couple of years ago.
That is on the list. You haven't gotten that yet.
And then I did Thirst and Stoker.
Haven't seen any of them.
The Handmaiden. Text me when you watch The Handmaiden. Like that, I think that is one of my favorite films of all time. It is.
I've heard like a lot of the other people who are in our like little movie watching group love Stoker specifically as well, which like I don't even know anything about. So I'm like, don't tell me anything. I'll just go in fresh and see what happens. But yeah, loving him so far. I can't believe how much I loved JSX. Like, I was like, it ended with like such a punch that I felt so much emotion. I was like, God damn, like, and I feel like I don't do that very often. So yeah, it ruled. Really, really enjoyed it.
Cool.
I'll go. Last podcast, I've been on a comic run big time, and Ralph had mentioned Avengers Twilight.
Oh yeah.
So I went to my local comic store, grabbed the trade, and it's a good story. It's a good. It was just a cool story. It's a it's very much like another like, what if they're old? What if everything sucks and they're old? But it's just the art is incredible.
Yes,
the art's really, really good, and it's centered a lot around Captain America, who I really like, and I think there's a lot of depth to that character that, again, I always think people like totally miss or it goes over their head, but like when that character is really well done, it's great. And Avengers Twilight takes like old Captain America in a world that's left him behind. Heroes are kind of like this like cynical manufactured thing now. And, the country is essentially like a mess. It's like taken over by like...
Hard to imagine.
Yeah, very, very wild. Yeah. But it's actually surprisingly relevant in how it was pretty cynical.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
one of the big, and I'm not spoiling anything, but like the big moment is like Cap works with the rebels and like some other old heroes coming back, right? And they take over the airwaves and he says a big speech and it's like in Times Square. He's on all the screens because they hack the airwaves and he gives a speech and no one gives a shit.
Exactly.
Like it just does not resonate with the people. And it's like, oh man, they're so far gone. They're so far in a different direction that the old school heroism thing just doesn't do anything. Deeply cynical, but just really, really well done. And again, the art is really good. I forgot the artist off the top of my head. Alex Ross did the covers, which is always good. But
I don't have it with me here. No.
yeah, Avengers Twilight, very cool, very interesting. If you're looking for a little bit of an alternate, interesting take, go for it.
Totally.
Highly recommend.
Did you see that Liefeld is beefing with Marvel because they're like he's pissed off he didn't get invited to the Deadpool party and he's like, I'm never working with Marvel ever again. I hate you guys.
Oh yeah, I
I'm
did see
done.
that. Yeah.
So Liefeld does like he's always been outspoken about stuff like that, and some people dog on him. But like, I mean, Brubaker was on record like not getting any money for the Winter Soldier.
Sure.
And then
Such a bummer.
like all this stuff that has gone on with like the Winter Soldier and like how many things Captain America and that specific type of Captain America storyline has carried into things, and like they don't really. There's like little instances of them like working with the comic creators and like.
Just like be a decent person, right? Like it's just like all you got to do. Like you're Kevin Feige, you're probably worth like $5 billion on your own, right? Just like just set up a meeting and like give them a consulting credit and like pay them a decent salary to like. It doesn't have to be like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like just kick in some money. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Just that's a bummer.
It does seem extremely simple. I wonder why this keeps happening.
I something similar happened with like Marvel Snap, which is a game that I play, and like the artists are talking about the fact that like when a new series of cards art gets released, that artists who worked on this art back in the day don't get paid for it when it gets brought into the game, right? Because they did that art for like comic book covers or whatever else, and now it's not their property anymore. So that means Marvel can do with it whatever they please, and one of the things they can do then is bring it into a video game and then sell that art for dollars as as a cosmetic on a card. Now you might rightly say, well, that's how it is. That's business. It's like it'd be like any other service that you've asked a staff member to make, and then you as the owner of that thing, you then push it out for sure. At the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know, with artists, they're struggling, man. Like those people are not making much money. And I think if Marvel were to like just throw them a bone, that would be helpful. You know what I mean?
It feels like a thing a union should come in and help out with for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I personally don't really have anything. I've just been working nonstop, trying to do everything. As I said, the only thing I watched was half of the awful Fantastic Four movie, and then I watched Mission Impossible, which was, and I'm seeing the new Cap movie this weekend.
Are you taking a date? It's a Valentine's Day movie.
Oh no, only my friend. We watch all the dumb movies together. So that guy, he's my date.
I'm so annoyed by that movie being called Brave New World. I'm very annoyed by it. How do you get the audacity? Like it's such a well-known book. Like it's just
was it a comic book run? Was it a comic book run? I can't remember.
Maybe, I don't know, but Brave New World is like
sure.
It's just such a pivotal book. That's I don't know.
And apparently it's bad. Who could have?
What?
Yeah.
Oh, the movie. I was going to say, right. I was in the book. I'm like, what?
No, the movie.
Yeah, no one could have seen that coming.
Yeah.
So
Come on, it's got Red Hulk in it.
Yeah, Harrison Ford.
Give people what they want.
He was so passionate about that role. You could tell he was so excited to get the call. So.
Lucy, what about you?
I saw Conclave. Finally.
Oh, bro.
I love that movie.
Sure.
Did the ending, and without spoiling it, did it throw you for a loop? Did you? Because it kind of like was like. Whoa.
I didn't see it coming, but I loved the ending. No spoilers. I loved Conclave as a whole movie. The Pope dies, and it's all up to the rest of the, like all of the. What are they? What's their level? Like in the, like a certain level of priest. All come to the Vatican.
We'll call him High Priest.
High Priest.
Cardinal Bishop. I don't know.
Yeah, all come to Vatican City, and they get locked in. Like shutters come down. Battle they can't Royale. Leave. No one can. They can't leave. No one can get in, and they just have to sit and vote on who is going to be the next pope. And those little priests are bitches. They are.
It's so political.
It's so political. There was some, I'm not going to say which one, but as soon as he came in, I was like, I don't trust him. I think he's got something going on. And it's like, there were certain points in it we were like gasping at some of the reveals of these bitchy little popes. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I had a lovely time.
One of Ralph Fiennes' best, like, understated roles.
Very
Oh my
understated.
God. You just love him in
The
it. You know?
Tooch is in it. The Tooch is great in it.
Yep.
John Lithgow.
Really good.
Really good.
Apparently, he's going to be Dumbledore in the TV show. The Harry
Weird
Potter TV
choice.
show.
Huh.
He's American.
Yeah, I know, but he can just do so many things. He's just,
Yeah.
I love.
Remember when he was in the James Franco Planet of the Apes movie?
Yeah,
That
he was
weird.
the dad.
He like punched the monkey in the
That
face or something, or
existed?
the monkey punched him, and then that started the war.
Yeah.
I don't remember that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's what.
All right,
Well,
good stuff.
No, that was a
Conclave,
show. All right.
highly recommended. Yeah. All right, folks. I think that was another episode. That was episode 63 of Friends Per Second. Some things to shout out at the end. We have a social, like, we have like a, we have a clips channel. I don't know what you call it.
Yep, highlights channel.
Highlights channel.
Yeah.
I call
Friends
it the
Per
clip
Second
zone.
highlights. The clip zone.
Please don't
Yeah.
call it that. No one calls it clip zone, but Lucy, by the way, please.
Search Friends Per Second highlights on YouTube. We do shorts. We do clips of just segments of the show. Maybe you can't catch a whole episode and you want to just quickly see the gist of something. We're going to be uploading those consistently, like, after the episode airs, so you can check that out. We're also putting clips on Instagram and stuff as well, so check out the Friends Per Second Instagram account. Is TikTok still around? TikTok's on,
Yeah,
right?
TikTok's
Yeah,
on.
for now.
I need to
Yeah.
upload.
Okay.
It's for another 90 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, check us out on socials. Just search Friends Per Second.
Yeah.
We should come up.
Yeah.
You know the logo by now, hopefully.
Hopefully.
But also, thank you for rating us on the podcast apps. I appreciate those. I always look at those when I'm feeling down. So thank you. We also have our Substack, of course, which is substack.friend.
Other way
go
around.
ahead.
You got it. I believe
Friends
in
Per Second. Substack.com.
you nailed it.
Okay, cool. And then you can send us questions also at contact@friendspersecond.com.
Nailed it.
I'm nailing it. Folks, say goodbye.
Can I give one shout out before we go?
No. Yeah.
No. I want to give a shout out to Watch EXP. So these are the guys that I worked with for a long time at GameSpot in the UK, and they were the ones behind the Firearms Expert React series. They are launching
right.
their
Hell
Patreon.
yeah.
They launched it. When this goes up, they will have just launched it. And I want to give them a
Cool.
shout out because they are great and I love them and I miss working with them
Oh, yeah.
dearly. But I'm very excited for their new ventures. So let's watch EXP.
I'm glad they're back because I would binge those videos. Firearm Expert reacts to
They're so
you
good.
know,
Love that
swords in this or guns in this game.
Yeah.
That stuff is so good. So I'm glad it's back.
This is Jonathan Ferguson. Like,
Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you very much for watching. That's about it for us. Tie your shoes and go to bed.